As Marco makes landfall along the Louisiana coast tonight, we're now shifting our focus to Laura, likely to be a major hurricane. And this is one that will hit the Gulf Coast in the next 48 hours. Chris.
There is a lot we know about Laura. There is even more we don't know about this storm. That's what we're going to be sorting out for you here on the Weather Channel. I'm meteorologist Chris Warren live in Houston, Texas, and we do have teams fanned out across the Gulf Coast. In fact, all the way down to the most southern point of Florida and the contiguous United States in Key West.
Some nasty squalls rolled through parts of the Florida Keys today. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel here in Key West. Coming up, we'll show you one of those and what it looked like out here on this beach.
I'm storm specialist Mark Elliott. Hurricane expert Dr. Knabb is here with me tonight, pouring over the new data coming in on Laura. So before we get to the latest on what's left from Marco, want to bring in Dr. Knabb. Dr. Knabb, what are you watching this hour with regards to Laura?
Well, Laura is on the doorstep of the Gulf of Mexico, and I'm taking a very close look at what the satellite and the models tell us about just how strong Laura could get and what are its chances to become a major hurricane in the next couple of days before landfall, Mark.
This one could be much more significant than Marco, but Marco's not completely done. Want to continue to give you some of the latest information from Marco, and that includes that landfall actually occurred. There may actually be a couple of different landfall points. The marshy conditions here of, southern Louisiana. We've got that track that's going right over some of the islands and some of the marsh territory. But officially, landfall occurred at the mouth of the Mississippi River, winds of 40 miles per hour and reasonably high pressure. And this is what it looked like at the time. Look at that swirl coming right on in, almost devoid of any of the shower and thunderstorm activity that was all blown on off towards the north and east. That high shear environment that we were telling you about at this time yesterday continued. That said, even a disorganized storm in a highly surge vulnerable landscape of the Louisiana and Mississippi coastline, still with 1 to 2 feet or so of storm surge flooding. That's water above normally dry ground at this point. And that should be a hint that we really do have to watch out for the next storm down the line. If something that was as this disorganized can still give you 2 feet of storm surge flooding, a significant storm on the way could have much more than that. We're going to talk about that coming up. Again, all of the shower and thunderstorm activity was kind of blown away from the center. The center's down here. All of this loosely related to that influx of tropical moisture. There is indeed a chance for some severe weather. A tornado watch continues until midnight. No real strong storms at this very second, although there's some, ominous little pieces of these storms that are showing at least some rotation. And if we zoom in on these were storms that, half an hour ago had tornado warnings. It looks like they've cycled through. There's at least some rotation with this just north of that I-10 corridor. Inflow notch this way, rain cooled air wrapping back around. Can't completely rule out another spin-up tornado on that cell just north of I-10, moving past the Chipley area generally towards Dothan. And we're not done with the rainfall threat from Marco either. As we put this into motion here and show you where the tropical storm and then the remnants, depression and the remnant low will go, there will still be scattered showers and storms. A little bit of daytime heating for tomorrow will go a long way to kind of reactivate that shower and thunderstorm regime. Remember, we still have that trough nearby and the strong winds aloft. So honestly, less rain near the low, more showers and storms that get a little extra upper air kicker across northern Mississippi, northern Alabama into North Georgia. Storms that you get tomorrow could be that much stronger. A little bit more moisture to work with, a little bit more upper level wind energy to work with also. Towards the coast where it's been rather soggy, it's been a real soggy summer, so you started with a high base. You're still getting bands of showers and thunderstorms in, so can't completely rule out a little bit more flash flooding. That includes Mobile, Pensacola, Panama City, Apalachicola, all included in that flood threat. That's where we could see another inch, maybe 2. Outside chances of an additional 3 to 5 on the northeast side of that circulation, right? Because of the shear, if you're south and west of where that low goes and where that track goes, much less rain than what you'll see if you go on off towards the north and east. That said, even tomorrow, there is at least an increased chance of some thunderstorm action near that low, near that extra spin. So can't rule out some severe weather in that area. I want to bring back Dr. Knabb now because, gosh, the next storm down the line really might be very different from the impacts from Marco.
In so many ways, Mark. So if you live in Houston and Galveston and really anywhere along the Gulf Coast into the Florida Panhandle, time is going to be quickly running out over the next couple of days to prepare. Laura will make landfall somewhere on the Gulf Coast, that we are sure of, but how strong it will be is the question, and exactly who's going to get exactly what wind and what water at the coast and inland. There's a lot to break down here, so let's update you on the latest advisory from the Hurricane Center on Tropical Storm Laura. Came out an hour ago. It's an intermediate public advisory. They upped the winds a little bit to 65 miles an hour based on recon data, still moving relatively quickly, west-northwest at 20 miles an hour, so it's not going to be over Cuba much longer, and it has spent a good bit of time, at least partially over land. That has allowed it to maintain its strength since yesterday, but here it is, Gulf of Mexico. It's about to spend 2 days over the water there where it has, unfortunately, plenty of time to strengthen. About a couple of days. Hurricane Center has it making landfall sometime early Thursday. 105 miles an hour is the exact forecast, but a couple of important caveats here. Number one, it could end up being stronger than that. Could get to 115, which would be a Cat 3. Now, it could end up being weaker than this. These intensity forecasts definitely uncertain. Also, we cannot guarantee that the center of circulation is going to stay within that cone. Look at the various track scenarios from the European model ensemble, as we call it. A lot of those tracks are left of the cone. There are fewer tracks off to the right as compared to yesterday. Things have generally shifted a bit to the left, but there's still a huge spread and a lot of possibilities on where the center comes ashore. Talked about time running out. We've got tonight and tomorrow, but then Wednesday things will start going downhill in southeast Louisiana. If the tropical storm conditions get there, it could start around breakfast time Wednesday, and then if they get to the Galveston, Houston area, it would be around this time, maybe a little earlier on Wednesday. So we're less than 2 days out. That's why we have the hurricane and tropical storm watches up. The hurricane watch goes from east of Houston over to Lafayette, Louisiana area. Tropical storm watch does include Houston and goes way inland. This is not just going to be a coastal event all the way over to Grand Isle, Louisiana. Does not include New Orleans at this time. Now, storm surge watch is up again. This is not for Marco. This is now for Laura. It does not include Metro New Orleans, but does include Lake Pontchartrain, and then going to the same part of the Mississippi coastline around Louisiana all the way over to the Houston, Galveston coastal area. So that's where there's the possibility of life-threatening storm surge, and the values are higher than what was forecast or realized in Marco. 7 to 11 feet somewhere in this red zone above normally dry ground is what the saltwater flooding could be near the coastline. So get above 3 feet, it's life-threatening. Then, speaking of life-threatening water, especially starting Wednesday and heading into Thursday as the system moves inland, a big-time inland rain-induced flood event is on the docket here, especially in western Louisiana and then going up into Arkansas. And when we look at the rainfall totals from the models, they start to get pretty alarming along the Texas-Louisiana border up into Arkansas, more than half a foot in a number of places. Our Chris Warren is in Houston, Texas, a city that's under that tropical storm watch tonight. And Chris, I hope folks in the Houston area realize that even though the whole metro area isn't currently inside the cone, that doesn't mean things couldn't change and the threat could go up for some of those folks.
And that really is, I think, the tricky thing. And as you mentioned, Dr. Knabb, as well, with those watches up, meaning the conditions for either tropical storm force winds or hurricane force winds, those conditions possible within a couple of days, within 48 hours. And as you mentioned, we're within that time. So tomorrow, I think, is going to be the day here in Houston when we have a much better idea of exactly where it's going to go, because where we are here in Houston, I'm just on the west side of the city skyline. On the other side, a little ways, is where the cone of uncertainty is. But here, even though we know based on history that a third of the time the center of the storm goes outside of the cone, so it still is absolutely within the realm of possibilities that there's some pretty nasty weather. There could be some of the worst weather here in Houston. So you're right on the edge there. So we're going to know a lot more tomorrow about that. Today has been a pretty, it's been a nice day. It's been hot. It's Texas, it's Houston, but it's been a pretty nice day. Business as usual here at Buffalo Bayou Park. People out here playing soccer, running, exercising, just kind of hanging out. Tomorrow probably won't look a whole lot different if people aren't paying attention. Now, if they are paying attention and it doesn't look too bad, then probably exactly the same. Otherwise, you hope that people are getting their, ducks in a row, their business in order, because time's running out, as you mentioned, Dr. Nab. And Dr. Nab, we're also talking about the possibility of this thing strengthening. So we feel pretty good about the timing, right? Wednesday going into Thursday for the landfall. And then, of course, later we're going to talk about what this means all the way to the mid-Atlantic with this strong system moving inland. But just with the intensification, we talk a little bit about what that could mean if it gets stronger faster for the direction where it could go. So we feel good about the timing. Just exactly where it's going to go and how strong it's ultimately going to be still needs to be worked out. But the potential is there, isn't it, for a much stronger storm?
Yes, and track and intensity forecasts are related. The more time it has over water, the more time it has to strengthen. So maybe the farther west it goes, perhaps a little bit more time it would have to rapidly intensify. But either way, there's about 2 days over the warm waters of the Gulf with weak wind shear. And we've seen plenty of past storms, Chris, that got pretty strong starting from tropical storm. 2 days later, sometimes major hurricane. And that is not out of the realm of possibility in this case. So I hope people are ready to change their reaction, because local officials there might have to change the instructions to the public if the track and intensity get more threatening for Houston.
So, Dr. Nab, when we watch tomorrow unfold with this system, we know that these systems, they are susceptible. They need what I think is so ironic. These huge monster of storms need relatively quiet surroundings to develop, but they're also susceptible to movement by winds at different levels of the atmosphere. We talk a little bit about if it does intensify, will it make a difference in where it could go, or if it remains a weaker storm, will that play into effect of where it could go, or is it just moving too fast?
Yeah, I think in this particular case, we already know we're going to have a strong system. It's going to be a hurricane, just a matter of how strong. So it's going to be a tall system steered by the deep layer winds, and there's not going to be much wind shear. The steering currents are well defined, so that doesn't mean we know exactly where it's going to go, but I think no matter how intense it gets, the large-scale steering around that ridge over the Atlantic is going to steer it to the northwest Gulf. But the devil's in the details, as they say, so let's get into those and talk to you about what are the factors that are in play that could determine if this does rapidly intensify. Now, again, starting with the exact forecast that came out at 4 p.m. Central Time, and it makes it up to 105 miles an hour in the 2.5-day time frame from the time the forecast was issued, up to 105. That's 10 miles an hour shy of major hurricane status at 115. And notice the 24 and the 48-hour forecasts are 70 miles an hour, strong storm, and 100 miles an hour, a Cat 2. Now, what are the chances these numbers end up being greater? Well, these are the four main factors that I see as the ones to look for over the next several hours to see if the models and the observations give us a clue. Number one is the recent intensity trend. Number two is how symmetric are the thunderstorms. Number three is how weak is that wind shear ahead over the Gulf of Mexico. And the fourth thing is how much warm water and deep warm water is it going to go over in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, that first one, Chris, is the recent intensity trend. And one thing that's not good news, Chris, is that even near Cuba, it has been able to maintain its intensity, and this evening intensified a little bit, and that core is starting to take shape on the radar here as it moves over extreme western Cuba. So it looks like it is at the beginning stages of being organized enough to take advantage of those weak shear and warm water conditions ahead of it.
So, Dr. Nab, so you mentioned that we feel pretty confident it's going to be a much stronger storm than it currently is, and we feel pretty good about the timing and the exact location of where the center is going to go. Of course, we have a lot to figure out with that, because exactly where it goes is going to mean something really big for some people. What do you think the biggest wild card is in where this ultimately will end up? Well, look, what are you most interested to see play out in the atmosphere tomorrow?
Well, I am really interested to see what happens overnight tonight once the NOAA G4 jet data from the current mission they're flying in the Gulf of Mexico, once those data get into the models, does that cause the model track envelope to get into better agreement? And I don't know exactly what the data might reveal in the atmosphere to get the models in better agreement, but that's the goal of sending out that jet, to try to get the steering currents over the Gulf, where there's otherwise not much data, to give the models a better idea of exactly where it's going to go. But we've seen with Ike and with Rita, the track over the Western Gulf changed quite a bit. So expect some changes.
And talk about those models for just a second. Some people say, well, which model is the best? It's not that easy, is it? And even if they look like they're together, there's a little bit more to the story than that, right? It's not a cut and dry situation when we talk about the models, especially looking at the spaghetti plots.
No, we've learned over the years to take an average of the best, most reliable models, to consider all of them, and then use that to convey what the realm of possibilities are. But those realm of possibilities span a large area of Texas and Louisiana. More on those details coming up.
And Doug.
You know, Limu, after all these years, it's the ones that got away that haunt me the most. Because you're not like everybody else. That's why Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance. So you only pay for what you need.
What?
Oh, I said.
Oh, this is my floor.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
At Bear Naked, soft-baked granola clusters are handpicked by our very own Bear Naked granola bears. Honey, oats, nuts, and fruit. Satisfying enough for a bear, clean enough to be naked. Bear Naked granola. Feed your bear.
Domino's knows delivery, so when we asked our team members how to make carry-out more convenient, they had thoughts.
Frisbee it.
That's a thought.
Deliver it.
Even better. Introducing Domino's Carside Delivery. Just pull up, check in online, and we bring your food to you. It's carry-out delivered.
This summer, we've all got miles to make up. Miles to the job site, to the campsite, and anything else we set our sights on. Miles back to those who can make this summer mean more than ever. We can help you get the most out of those miles during the Ram Summer Clearance Event.
Right now, get $7,300 in total values on the 2020 Ram 1500. Shop and buy online at ram.com.
Frank's Red Hot. I put that on everything. Like pizza, your coworker's lunch, whatever this is. Astronaut food.
And astronauts?
Everything. Yum. It's the perfect blend of flavor and heat. I put that on everything.
Ugh, is there a natural litter that actually works?
At Tidy Cats, Litterventions come naturally. Naturally strong unscented with activated charcoal or new scented clean lemongrass with plant extracts. 100% natural, 100% powerful. There's a Tidy Cats for that.
It's so good to see you guys. Han, out here.
Are we on yet?
Oh.
I thought we were doing a Zoom thing.
Confused?
No.
Maybe you just need a Snickers.
Valspar Signature holds up to common stains and cleans up easy. Discover what's possible at Lowe's.
Have you taken a body blow at work? If so, it's good to know that the lawyers at Pasternak Tilker are in your corner, ready to get you back in the ring. Whether you have a workers' compensation claim, a COVID-19 claim, or a Social Security disability claim, Pasternak Tilker, Ziegler, Walsh, Stanton, and Romano will always fight for you. Call them today at 1-800-222-WISH. That's 1-800-222-WISH.
Hey, Luke, wake up. You fell asleep again.
Why do I always fall asleep on the bus after school? Why am I so tired?
That's what we always wondered. But then he was diagnosed with narcolepsy, so he was more than tired. Narcolepsy can affect anyone, children and adults. We waited too long to take action, but you don't have to.
Visit morethantired.com now. Learn about the 5 symptoms of narcolepsy, take the narcolepsy symptom screener, and find a sleep specialist. Don't wait. Visit morethantired.com today.
This is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
An all-new season of Weather Gone Viral, Sunday night on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 86 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Tonight, partly cloudy, low 78. Winds west-southwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Tuesday, thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. A few storms may be severe. High 93. Chance of rain 40%. Tuesday night, a mostly clear sky. Low 70. Winds northwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
I'm meteorologist Julie Martin. Right now, nearly 10 million under tropical alerts in the U.S. That includes Houston to Beaumont, Texas, over to Lake Charles and Lafayette, Louisiana. Take a look at these hurricane watches up in orange right now. And power outages likely in Louisiana tonight. Crews are staging in Plaquemines Parish. A state of emergency in effect for Louisiana tonight. Evacuations ordered for coastal parishes. And in New Orleans, work crews spent today closing the floodgates. In all, 689 gates are being monitored. Nearly 400 were closed today. Crews have also been pumping down canals. And live in New Orleans tonight, the lieutenant governor is saying tomorrow is the last day for the state to prepare for Laura and wants everyone to take advantage of it. Storm surge watch remains in effect for tonight. Meanwhile, Laura bringing squalls, packing heavy rain and wind to parts of South Florida. This was the scene in Fort Myers a few hours ago. No tropical watches or warnings here, but farther south in the Keys, well, we still have those tropical storm warnings up. We'll check out Mike Seidel there in about 50 minutes past the hour. And this is the type of weather Laura brought to Jamaica. Look at this, roads completely underwater, drivers getting stuck, and winds gusting over 70 miles an hour here. Here's what we know right now about Tropical Storm Laura. In a press conference, Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards said the Laura forecast, quote, causes me to have tremendous concern. The Louisiana National Guard has mobilized 98 high water vehicles and 55 boats. Galveston, Texas has issued a voluntary evacuation order, and mandatory evacuations have been issued for all nursing and assisted living facilities in Galveston. So bracing for what could be quite the storm when it comes to Laura. Just now, not quite into the Gulf of Mexico just yet, Dr. Rick Knabb, but we know that's where it's headed.
Absolutely, Julie, and we've got a couple of days to get ready for what Laura could bring at the coast and inland. So just to give you an idea how much time we have left, you heard the governor of Louisiana talking about tomorrow being the last day to prepare. That's because the expectation is if the tropical storm force winds arrive in southeast Louisiana, that could be breakfast time on Wednesday. That would be the most likely time. And then if they make it to the Galveston-Houston area, that would be even earlier than right now on Wednesday evening, 2 days from now. Now, that is assuming the forecast is perfectly accurate. It's just as likely that it takes longer for the winds to arrive as it does for the winds to arrive sooner than that. So if you want to be sure you're ahead of the game, you want to be ready by tomorrow night when you go to bed in southeast Louisiana, and you want to be ready when you get up on Wednesday morning in southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana. So that really means tomorrow is the main day. So tonight you could plan what to do, and tomorrow you could do it. And with regard to storm surge, this is the main reason that local officials might be telling you to evacuate. And this is going to be a higher end event than Marco was, a higher end event than we've seen in Louisiana at all this year, really. And we're talking 7 to 11 feet of saltwater flooding above normally dry ground near the coast. So this is a significant event for which you might need to evacuate. So if you haven't been told to evacuate yet, you might be told tonight or tomorrow. So you've got to know if evacuation orders apply to you. Know if you live in an evacuation zone, what color or letter that zone is. And as soon as you know what that zone is, figure out right that moment, and do it now, do it tonight, where you would go and how you would get there if told to evacuate. And I'm talking to you folks inland as well. If you live way inland in Louisiana and the folks down near Lake Charles and Lafayette southward, they've got to evacuate, then why don't you work it out with someone down there to be their inland evacuation destination? If you're out of a flood-prone area, you live in a strong home from wind, be an inland host. You want to do everything you can to prepare your home for the storm because you want it to be able to withstand the storm as best as possible while you're gone. And you want to start packing for and then take supplies, including for the pandemic. And don't leave your pets at home. We've seen too many times when people evacuate for storm surge, saltwater flooding near the coast, or inland flooding. They leave pets at home, and you know how dangerous that can be. Now, with regard to what you take with you when you evacuate, this is stuff you can start assembling tonight. If you know you're going to have to evacuate tomorrow, or if you think that might be a possibility, you want to assemble cash and important documents for insurance in case things flood while you're gone. You want to have those important documents with you to make a claim. And look at this important list for this year. During the pandemic, when you evacuate, ideally you go to a friend's home, not to a shelter, and a friend's home not too far away. But in any case, take the masks, the sanitizer, the wipes, the first aid kit, all the medicines, the prescription medicines, the over-the-counter stuff, and bring everything your pets will need. And then blankets, pillows, and phone charger. How important is that? If the power goes out, the first thing that might come back up when things start working again is texting. So you want to be able to make sure you can charge your phone, bring a battery-powered phone charger or a solar-powered phone charger, and bring all the keys to your home, fill up that gas tank before you go, bring water and non-perishable foods. Now, there's one last list here. There are things to do before you evacuate. If you're leaving your home, you want to shut off your home's utilities if officials tell you to do so. Depending on where you live, that might be different. Unplug your electrical devices and appliances because you don't want them to flood and the power going on and off while you're gone. And you want to elevate as many things as you can before you leave so that things don't get flooded as much as possible. So a lot to do to get ready to evacuate. And as you are getting ready, if you are on the go and you can't watch us on TV or you have to evacuate, you can also get the latest track and up-to-the-minute forecast from the Weather Channel now on Sirius XM, channel 721. We'll be live streaming through noon Eastern Time on Thursday to keep you safe.
Age is just a number, and mine's unlisted.
Try Boost High Protein with 20 grams of protein for muscle health versus only 16 grams in Ensure High Protein. And now enjoy Boost High Protein in new Cafe Mocha flavor.
Stouffer's mac and cheese is made with 100% real cheese.
So creamy.
So cheesy.
It's too bad you're a dog. This is really creamy. You'd love it.
Stouffer's, the taste you love at a price you'll love.
We know to wash our hands. Here's a reminder from Cetaphil to wash your face, too. Dermatologist recommended Cetaphil washes away germs in 20 seconds and leaves skin moisturized and healthy. Show your sensitive skin some love with Cetaphil.
At Bear Naked, soft-baked granola clusters are handpicked by our very own Bear Naked granola bears. Honey, oats, nuts, and fruit. Satisfying enough for a bear, clean enough to be naked. Bear Naked granola. Feed your bear.
Make the summer yours with a twist of flavor. Discover the Mediterranean flavors and gentle bubbles of San Pellegrino Essenza. Add a twist of flavor.
It's grilled cheese time, yeah, it's time for grilled cheese. After we make a grilled cheese, then we're eating grilled cheese because it's time, yeah, it's time for grilled cheese.
Valspar Signature holds up to common stains and cleans up easy. Discover what's possible at Lowe's.
That's a buffalo flatbread bullseye for my mouth to aim at.
Oh, hiding, huh? The new grilled buffalo chicken papadilla. Tangy buffalo sauce, grilled chicken, and melty cheese for just $6. Papa John's.
Right now, AARP's work is more important than ever. Access to health care, affordable prescription drugs, opportunities to save for the future. That's what AARP fights for because that's what everyone deserves.
On the road again,
Book 2 separate qualifying stays and earn a free night. The open road is open again, and wherever you're headed, Choice Hotels is there. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Well, here's to first dates. You look amazing.
And you look amazingly comfortable.
When your V-neck looks more like a U-neck, that's when you know it's half washed. Try Downy fabric conditioner. Unlike detergent alone, Downy helps prevent stretching by conditioning and smoothing fibers. So clothes look newer, longer. Downy, and it's done.
Oh, hey! Where are you headed?
Hi, just running all over. Buster's food is on sale. I have to pick up his flea and tick medicine, and then I am headed downtown to get a new dog sweater.
You know you can buy all of those things at Chewy.
Yes,
And their prices are amazing. We save on food, toys, and prescriptions. And with Chewy's Auto Ship, you can set up repeat deliveries so you never run out.
that would really free up my day.
Great. Want to come with us to the PARK?
Save 30% on your first order with Chewy. Download the app today.
Experience the joy of a bigger world in a highly connected Lexus vehicle at the Golden Opportunity Sales Event.
Lease the 2020 ES350 for $359 a month for 36 months.
Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
Laura is expected to make landfall between southeast Texas and south central Louisiana as a strong Category 2 hurricane late Wednesday or very early on Thursday. Forecast that we have for Laura causes me to have tremendous concern. We need to take every precaution and take this one very, very seriously.
Some good advice there for sure. Our live around-the-clock coverage continues right now on the Weather Channel. The center of Marco moved ashore tonight. Now we're really starting to turn our attention to Laura, which is expected to strengthen over the next 48 hours before a Gulf Coast landfall. The storm already brought gusty winds and torrential downpours to parts of Florida today, especially into the Keys. Hundreds of miles away from the center, and yet a wind gust approaching 70 miles per hour at Key West, along with tree damage, shows you the scope and the growing concern from Laura. But also want to talk a little bit more about Marco. What's already occurred with Marco, we officially went through landfall already today. The mouth of the Mississippi River was that official landfall point. Wind of 40 miles per hour, a disorganized storm that continues to look disorganized. This was when landfall occurred. That's the center. That's all the thunderstorm action well away from that center. And yet even with that, we have a storm surge right now, water above normally dry ground, a little over 2 feet. And with a disorganized storm, it shows you what that potential can be like with a very organized storm coming your way. You know, orders of magnitude different from that. Lots of rain across the southeast, mostly well away from that center. There is still a tornado watch that's in place, goes until midnight. Portions of the Florida Panhandle, small section of Alabama into southwest Georgia. And within here, a couple of storms that at times have shown that kind of kidney bean shape, some rotation. Nothing immediately jumping out as needing a warning, but we are watching a couple of these cells now well north of that I-10 corridor. There'll be more of this for tomorrow. Scattered showers and storms could be strong at times, a continued severe threat. But overall, this is small potatoes compared to what's on the way with Laura. Gosh, look at this. We've got New Orleans, we've got Galveston. Both of you really need to watch this. I'd argue more Galveston than New Orleans, although we can't give you the complete all clear in the New Orleans area. Dr. Nab, there are signs as the environment is really primed for this to take off that should really give everybody pause.
Yeah, and the fact that it has not mightily struggled as it has interacted with the landmass of Cuba is concerning because that means once it gets clear of land and it's over the Gulf of Mexico for 2 solid days, I don't see any reason why this doesn't become a pretty strong hurricane and possibly a Cat 3, a major one. 65-mile-an-hour storm, that's up from earlier today, and it's only got a little bit of land left. And then overnight tonight, it will be over water. Here's the daytime loop, and you see on the visible imagery how it maintained a lot of its character, a lot of the thunderstorm activity remaining south of the landmass of Cuba. And then as we go into the nighttime with the radar, you can see what might be the beginnings of an inner core. Might not be completely vertically stacked back with the low-level center, but once it gets out of the Gulf, it just looks like it has every sign structurally that it will be able to develop an inner core that it doesn't quite have right now, and it has the very weak wind shear. You see all this southwesterly winds that tore Marco apart. Not the case over Laura. Clockwise flow aloft, upper level high pressure, weak wind shear. And if you look at what's going to happen over the Gulf over the next couple of days, you see the upper level winds and the traveling white lines continuing to do this fashion. And here's our subtropical ridge that's steering it around, bending it to the north and eventually northeast as it comes ashore. Now, again, it's very difficult to pinpoint where exactly that turn occurs, at least on that European model run. It's farther west than yesterday, but that doesn't mean we can't have something happen outside the cone as well as inside the cone in terms of where the center goes, and it's possible that it gets stronger than that 105-mile-an-hour forecast near the time of landfall on early Thursday. And look at all of these tracks from the European model. A lot of them are outside the cone. So if you're in the western part of the Houston metro area, you can't let your guard down because things can change. You could end up getting the core of this thing. Storm surge watches are up as of 5 p.m. Houston, Galveston area, all the way around to Lake Pontchartrain and portions of the coast of Mississippi. It does not include Metro New Orleans, but look at these values, 7 to 11 feet above normally dry ground of saltwater flooding somewhere in this area from southeast Texas over to the central coast of Louisiana. And then the other big water problem is going to be inland. This is not just going to be a coastal event, and the stronger it is when it comes ashore, the more solid rain and the more strong wind it will bring inland. So we have a team of meteorologists spread out across the Gulf Coast to bring you the latest as Hurricane Laura gets closer. Live team coverage continues around the clock right here on the Weather Channel.
This is my body of proof. Proof I can fight moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis.
Proof I can fight psoriatic arthritis. With Humira. Proof of less joint pain.
And clearer skin in PSA.
Humira targets and blocks the source of inflammation that contributes to joint pain and irreversible damage.
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections. Serious and sometimes fatal infections, including tuberculosis and cancers, including lymphoma, have happened, as have blood, liver, and nervous system problems, serious allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure. Tell your doctor if you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, are prone to infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Humira is proven to help stop further joint damage.
Want more proof? Ask your rheumatologist about Humira citrate-free.
If you can't afford your medicine, AbbVie may be able to help.
Can't wait to tell everyone about AT&T's big 5G news.
AT&T has nationwide 5G?
Yep.
And that's faster?
Faster, yeah.
But is it reliable?
Uh-huh, and secure.
You should consider making a big deal about it.
Bigger?
I said bigger.
Oh, bigger deal, bigger than what I'm doing.
It's not complicated. A 5G network needs a 5G device. Now everyone, including existing customers, can get a free Samsung Galaxy Note 20 after trade-in.
Through our love promise, Subaru and our retailers are proud to be replanting 500,000 trees in areas devastated by wildfires. Subaru, more than a car company.
It's about the humans. These humans, those humans, Groovin and Golden. It's about getting more than health insurance and a partner who listens and acts. Humana calls it human care. It's talking to a doctor from your couch or helping you find a cheaper prescription before you ask. It's helping you fix the rugs so you don't fall and keeping you social, online or off. It's getting to know you so you can be your healthiest. That's our superpower. That's human care from Humana.
How do you make a Pinot Noir taste like no other? Start with grapes from 3 California regions. Push flavor in new directions. And put a bear on the label. Made like no other for a taste like no other. Mayomi. Flavor forward.
Is that net carbs or total? Not enough fiber. Chocolate would be good.
Snacking should be sweet and simple.
The delicious taste of Glucerna gives you the sweetness you crave while helping you manage your blood sugar with nutrients to help support immune health.
Tracking Laura on the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Chris Warren here in Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas is on the edge, essentially, and tomorrow we're going to know a lot more. And what I mean by the edge, I want to show you. First, there's Houston, the beautiful skyline right there. On the other side, on the east side of the city, is where the cone of uncertainty is, and that's what we see right here. Here is Houston. This is where I'm standing right now, and just on the edge. When you look at the cone of uncertainty, remember, too, the center of the storm, a third of the time, goes on the outside. So Houston is still in play, regardless of whether it's in the cone or not. The storm could still go this way. But look at these numbers. 100 mile per hour, 105. Just getting up close to a Category 3 hurricane. So that's possible landfall. But then look at this. Inland area, still strong tropical storm getting up into East Texas, the Arklatex, all the way through possibly Little Rock, St. Louis, heads up, Memphis, Nashville, Charleston, West Virginia, all the way to the mid-Atlantic. But there's a lot to learn between here, and whether or not Houston eventually will end up being in the cone. Talking about the fact that Houston is just on the edge and what this can mean. It can mean that it's just not that bad. Or we could have major impacts here in Houston. That is still a possibility. And knowing that the weather is expected to go downhill Wednesday into Thursday with the possible landfall somewhere within there, again, possible hurricane landfall, tomorrow's the day. Tomorrow's the day. First, we're going to find out a much better idea of what this is going to be, where it is ultimately going to go, and if it does look more likely than not that Houston is going to see the brunt of it, Mark, then there's not a lot of time to prepare here. And I think that's one of the things with the storm about 1,000 miles away. I think it's kind of hard maybe for people to get their head around things, especially when tomorrow's actually going to be a pretty decent day as well.
Especially since Houston isn't at least yet under a watch of any kind. I would assume that that's going to change sooner rather than later. There's just too many of the ensemble members that are suggesting Houston could be directly at play for the alarm bells not to start to be rung a little bit louder for the Houston area. So, Chris, I know you're doing your job there trying to warn everybody that this event is on the way, potentially on the way towards the Houston area. Somewhere in the Gulf Coast is going to be a big deal storm. So let's go through some of the latest information that we are following with regards to Laura, right? This is an impressive satellite loop because of the fact that there was land interaction just about all day. And the tropical storm thus far has kind of shrugged it off. We're waiting on that next advisory time right about 11 o'clock Eastern, and that position is going to be out here. Notice new blow up of thunderstorms right with that center. Some of this tropical moisture is going to get dragged around, and we could have a large tropical system moving into the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Already 65 mile per hour winds. We've got some Hurricane Hunter flights on either side of Cuba, checking out the storm in great detail. That data is going into the models. That data is going into the National Hurricane Center. Lots of really important stuff happening from there. How about the wind field? Yes, so far it has been kind of east loaded. Havana gusting to near 30, but look at Key West, hundreds of miles away, still gusting to close to 45 miles per hour. Earlier tonight, winds close to 70. Again, shows you the scale. And where do we go from here? Well, putting all the models together, all the different ensembles, and kind of making a heat map for you. Very good confidence that we're going to go through the center of the Gulf of Mexico. More confidence in western Louisiana than eastern. More confidence in East Texas than southern Texas. Starting to narrow down that path as to where we're going next. And here's kind of a zoom in for you. Houston, we cannot say that you won't have direct impacts. There's just too many opportunities from those ensembles coming your way. And again, some of the forecast numbers, as Chris was mentioning, could be underdone at this point. We've seen storms take a similar path to this before. So for an in-depth look at some of those storms, I want to bring back hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb, because Dr. Knabb, these are some infamous, not just famous, but infamous storms that took a path like this.
Yeah, and I think revisiting some of that history will be instructive to remind us how things can change. In all of these storms, with Rita, with Ike, with Isaac, with Barry, a lot of things didn't go according to the script if you were to pay attention to the exact track and intensity forecast 2 days ahead of time. Now, to set this up, I want to show you again the track and intensity forecast for Laura, and we'll go back to the tracks for these storms. Now, again, you cannot guarantee that the center is going to stay within this cone, and you cannot guarantee that the intensity will be exactly what is shown here. In fact, I just looked at the latest model output, and if you look at what is the possibility of it being a Cat 2 24 hours from now, it's about 1 in 3. What's the chance of it being a Cat 3 about 2 days from right now, and that's before landfall? About 1 in 3. I mean, so those are not really, really low chances. So the track and the intensity could throw us some curveballs, and you look at all these possible tracks, and when I see this big, wide swath of possible tracks, it reminds me of some of these past Western Gulf storms, and when you see this wide range of intensity model solutions, also reminds me of some past storms that didn't behave themselves exactly like we thought. Now, I picked some systems that are going along a similar path relative to Cuba on the way to the Gulf of Mexico, and then show you what the outcome was. Now, Rita was already a Cat 2 when it was about at this point, became a Cat 5, but then it weakened. And you remember what a big shift in the forecast track we saw as it went farther and farther north up the coast. That track certainly changed in terms of the forecast. Ike was a big-time major hurricane out here, but then it weakened to a Cat 1. But even though it had interacted with Cuba for a long time, even though it had disrupted its inner core, it was still able to re-strengthen almost to Cat 3 across the Gulf of Mexico, whereas Laura has an inner core that it might be able to develop. Isaac spent most of its time over Hispaniola in Cuba, still made it to a hurricane, even though it went farther to the east. And I remind you of Barry from last year because of the big-time inland flood event that happened in Louisiana and Arkansas. Laura is not just going to be a coastal event, it will be an inland event as well. We're going to be covering every bit of it for you.
Ta-da! Did you know Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need?
Given my unique lifestyle, that'd be perfect. Let me grab a pen and some paper. Know what? I'm gonna switch now. Just need my desk, my chair, and my phone. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Okay, everyone, our mission is to provide complete balanced nutrition for strength and energy.
Great tasting Ensure with 9 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals, and nutrients to support immune health.
Introducing New Life Cuisine for your lifestyle. High protein, meatless, gluten-free, or low-carb lifestyle. Power up your day with New Life Cuisine. Delicious your way.
When it's especially important to keep skin clean, keep reaching for Cetaphil. Recommended by dermatologists. Awarded by Allure. And most of all, loved by skin. Cetaphil, the cleanser sensitive skin loves.
Teddy loves tug-of-war. In his lifetime, he'll pull hundreds of tons. That's why he needs a tailored recipe from IAMS to help him stay fit. IAMS who I am.
Water?
Water tastes like water, so we fixed it. Mio.
Domino's knows delivery, so when we asked our team members how to make carry-out more convenient, they had thoughts.
Frisbee.
That's a thought.
Deliver it.
Even better. Introducing Domino's Carside Delivery. Just pull up, check in online, and we bring your food to you. It's carry-out delivered.
Spectrum Mobile is now the fastest growing mobile provider in the nation, growing faster than Verizon and AT&T, and even growing faster than T-Mobile. It's easy to see why. Spectrum delivers the fastest overall speeds and is the most reliable mobile service coast to coast. There are no contracts, added taxes, or fees. Switch and you could save up to 40% and see why Spectrum Mobile is the fastest growing mobile provider. Learn more at spectrummobile.com.
1877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids. 1877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Donate your car at carsforkids.org. That's cars with a K. Pick up is quick and easy. You'll also get a
vacation voucher and a tax deduction. 1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
This is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
An all-new season of Weather Gone Viral, Sunday night on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 85 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Tonight, partly cloudy, low 78. Winds west-southwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Tuesday, thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. A few storms may be severe. High 93. Chance of rain 40%. Tuesday night, a mostly clear sky. Low 70. Winds northwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Although we're about 200 miles due north of the center of Tropical Storm Laura, the winds are frisky tonight here in the Keys and here in Key West, running at about 25 to 30 miles an hour and gusting over 40. Look at the palm trees getting rustled by the wind, but that's nothing. Let me take you back to this afternoon, about 15 after 3 here in Key West, and the squall came rolling, and we saw it on radar, and boy, it really came through with a lot of ferocity. The wind gusted at the nearby National Weather Service office to 69 miles an hour. In fact, they lost part of their beloved umbrella tree. Didn't get a lot of rain, 0.08 of an inch at the nearby Key West airport, and it lasted about 15 or 20 minutes. But since then, we've had this kind of wind. Now, overnight, we still have the coastal flood watch. Water is going to be running a little higher, about 1 foot to 1.5 feet. Next high tide here is about 3:15 in the morning. And tomorrow, as Laura pulls away, well away from the Keys, the winds are still going to be gusting up over 30 miles an hour. So you're going to have to wait till Wednesday to get these kayaks back in the Gulf of Mexico. So once again, here in the Keys, they missed Isaias, just a basic brush by here in the middle and lower Keys from Laura. Well, we've got a long way to go, and we've got a long way to go with Laura, as it's expected to landfall as a hurricane in just a couple of days.
Well, the hurricane hunters are out in force, getting new data on Tropical Storm Laura. This is video from the center of the storm from the NOAA P3 Orion, known as Miss Piggy. What a beautiful shot. And thank you to the men and women flying these planes, collecting data for research and for operations. And that's not the only aircraft flying into the storm. All 3 types of Hurricane Hunter planes, from the P3 you see here to the C-130s from the Air Force and NOAA's Gulfstream 4 jet, are flying missions into Laura, even as we speak. So we have the Armada out there in the Gulf of Mexico, and there's a lot of coordination that goes on with the government of Cuba and all the countries in the Atlantic, Gulf, Caribbean region to make sure that these data are collected in a timely fashion. And if you look at the status of the system on satellite, you realize that it's tangling with land, and the hurricane hunters have to navigate around that. Now, the reason the winds are 65 miles an hour instead of 60 earlier is because of what the NOAA and Air Force planes found earlier. Now, the core of the storm is really over land now. We're really going to get the really important data from the aircraft once it emerges from Cuba in a few short hours here. But this is the kind of system that is really bumpy for the hurricane hunters. A tropical storm, very inconsistent thunderstorms. But it's not just the Air Force and NOAA planes going into Laura. They're flying in the periphery because they need to figure out what's going on in the surroundings in the Gulf of Mexico to get the steering right, to get the environment right, to figure out the intensity forecast. And the bottom line is they want to get data into the models that will help bring these into better agreement. This is a very wide spread. So the NOAA G4 jet that is out there, that's the blue line that you see there flying back and forth in that lawnmower pattern across the Gulf of Mexico. That is the G4 jet that's getting the data in the environment of the tropical tropical storm. It drops these dropsondes on the parachutes and gives you vertical profiles around the Gulf of Mexico and the Western Atlantic. Those data go into the models. And what's going to happen is those data are being ingested into the models that are running on the supercomputers right now. And then that output will be available to the hurricane specialists at the Hurricane Center when they put together their 5 a.m. advisory. So we'll have to see overnight if those models get into better agreement. But then the red lines are the NOAA and the Air Force turboprop planes, the P-3 and the C-130, that are going around inside of Laura collecting data. And this is all to get the forecast off to a better start, right? To help out the intensity and the track forecast. Now, what have they been finding recently? It's complicated. Now, this data that you see here is from what's called the SFMR, the Stepped Frequency Microwave Radiometer. It's an instrument that's mounted on the belly of the aircraft, actually under one of the wings, not the belly of the body of the plane, but under one of the wings. It looks down at the ocean surface, converts the foaminess of the surface into a wind speed. Problem is, when you're near land, there's a lot of contamination in that signal. So I don't think we've got maximum sustained winds that are well above that hurricane force threshold right now. I got to believe this is contaminated by the waves and the shallow water. But they did collect data earlier from that plane that showed the winds were up at about 65 miles an hour. Now, the NOAA plane is on its way home. That's why it's not collecting strong data anymore in the core. So, Mark, we've got everybody out there, and once this comes out over the Gulf, the turboprops going into the center will monitor the change in the intensity, and that G4 jet will continue to fly in the environment.
Yeah, so all this data goes into getting the better forecast down the road. So let's quickly move it down the road. And I think one of the things that is the most frightening is the storm surge forecast. Yeah. Even with the winds that could get higher than where they are now, 7 to 11 feet in that storm surge forecast already. Yeah, and what if the storm ends up getting a little bit stronger than forecast? Those numbers could go up as we get closer. And that is a frightening prospect, right? Because 7 to 11 feet is well through that threshold. That's above people's houses if they live right on the coastline.
Yeah, and those are the expected storm surge flooding values, subjectively determined by the Hurricane Center forecasters in the storm surge unit down there. And somewhere in that region, they're forecasting 7 to 11. But that is this far out. Once they get closer, and if it gets stronger, they'll refine those numbers. And in some places, the numbers could go up. So we're going to have to get really busy tomorrow with any changes in evacuations.
Yeah, and tomorrow might be when that happens. So you need to be thinking about how you get prepared now through the night into tomorrow as our teams are spreading out across the Gulf Coast to keep you informed.
This summer, we've all got miles to make up. Miles to the job site, to the campsite, and anything else we set our sights on. Miles that take us back to the people we've missed, and to those who could make this summer mean more than ever before. Get the most out of those miles during the Ram Summer Clearance event.
Commander, the wheel shark loves light, flaky, buttery club marines, and he's ready to snack. Oh no!
Commander, Kyle. Deliciously simple Club Minis. Mini crackers for big imaginations.
Frank's Red Hot. I put that on everything. Like pizza, your coworker's lunch, whatever this is. Astronaut food.
And astronauts?
Everything.
Yum.
It's the perfect blend of flavor and heat. I put that on everything.
How do you make a Pinot Noir taste like no other? Start with grapes from 3 California regions. Push flavor in new directions. And put a bear on the label. Made like no other for a taste like no other. Mayomi. Flavor forward.
Age-related macular degeneration may lead to severe vision loss.
So the National Eye Institute did 20 years of clinical studies on a formula only found in PreserVision.
If it were my vision, I'd ask my doctor about PreserVision.
It's the most studied eye vitamin brand.
If it were my vision, I'd look into PreserVision.
Only PreserVision AREDS 2 contains the exact nutrient formula recommended by the NEI to help reduce the risk of moderate to advanced AMD progression.
I have AMD. It is my vision, so my plan includes PreserVision.
Okay, everyone. Our mission is to provide complete balanced nutrition for strength and energy.
Great tasting Ensure with 9 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals, and nutrients to support immune health.
DiGiorno has 7 delicious crusts, and your family food critics will rave.
Rising Crust is fresh baked deliciousness. Stuffed crust is literally mouthwatering. There's a 5-star pizza for everyone in your family to love. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
When it's especially important to keep skin clean, keep reaching for Cetaphil. Recommended by dermatologists. Awarded by Allure. And most of all, loved by skin. Cetaphil, the cleanser sensitive skin loves.
These days, choosing the right Medicare plan matters more than ever. United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plans have so much to take advantage of. See a doctor from the comfort and safety of home with zero copay. Call today to get more of the care you need.
Valspar Signature holds up to common stains and cleans up easy. Discover what's possible at Lowe's.
As Marco continues its trek after landfall along the Louisiana coast tonight, we're now shifting our focus to Laura, likely to be a significant event, a big-time hurricane, and this one will be coming towards the Gulf Coast in about 48 hours. Chris.
I'm meteorologist Chris Warren in Houston, Texas, where Houston on the edge. What that could or could not mean for the coming days as it relates to Laura coming up.
Some nasty squalls rolled through parts of the Florida Keys today. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel here in Key West. Coming up, we'll show you one of those and what it looked like out here on this beach.
And I'm storm specialist Mark Elliott, hurricane expert Dr. Nab here with me tonight, pouring over that new data coming in on Laura. We're going to talk about what's left from Marco in just a second, but Dr. Nab, the center of Laura now exiting Cuba, already looking more and more organized moment by moment.
Yeah, Mark, so I'm pouring over the satellite data and the model output that's just coming in to see what are the chances that Laura gets stronger than forecast and maybe becomes a major hurricane. A little bit of a preview. I think those chances are going up.
Yeah, scary model output for sure. We'll talk about those details coming up. I do want to tell everyone about what's happening right now with regards to Marco. Remember, landfall happened earlier today, right about at the mouth of the Mississippi River, but all the shower and thunderstorm action was blown apart from there. Even with that kind of disorganized storm system, 2.3 feet of storm surge flooding still occurring at Shell Beach. That's 2.3 feet of water above normally dry ground. Picture what could be to come with a large organized hurricane instead of a disorganized tropical storm. Still showers and storms well away from that center. There is a tornado watch, but no immediate threat of tornadoes. That watch continues until midnight, and that threat continues not only Tuesday, but also on Wednesday for that possibility of more severe weather. Dr. Nab, we mentioned this is just the beginning of the tropical threats here in this same area because Laura is going to be the big deal system next in line.
Yeah, and a lot of people are potentially in harm's way. So if you live in a place like Houston and Galveston and really anywhere along the Gulf Coast all the way over to the Florida Panhandle, time will be quickly running out over the next couple of days to prepare. This storm will make landfall somewhere on the Gulf Coast. That we are sure of. But how strong it will be is one of the big questions. And it's also very difficult to pinpoint where landfall will occur. So we got a lot to break down here with Tropical Storm Laura that strengthened a little bit over the last few hours based on the data from the hurricane hunters as it tangles with the westernmost portion of Cuba. But those thunderstorms have not died off. In fact, they look to be on the increase as what could be the developing core eventually of this storm is about to come out into the Gulf of Mexico, moving quickly to the west-northwest at 20 miles an hour. That will be slowing down and taking a turn and making landfall somewhere in the northwestern portions of the Gulf of Mexico, but we cannot guarantee that the center of circulation will stay within that cone, and we cannot guarantee that the intensity will be exactly what is forecast there. It could be weaker than that at landfall, but it could be stronger than 105. If it gets to 115, we're talking about a Category 3 making landfall, and that is a possibility. We'll break that down in just a little bit. Look at all of the European model track scenarios, the ensemble members as we call them, reasonably possible tracks that are both within and on either side of the cone. So if you're on either side of that cone and not in it, don't think, oh, I'm out of the cone. No problem. things could easily change over the next couple of days. And we've got a lot of warm water for the system to go over. And I want to show you some of the Weather Service models. At least these global and regional hurricane dynamical models are in pretty good agreement, but they are likely to bounce around a little bit too. They could go either way. So we have a lot of possibilities, but we have a lot of fuel, a lot of warm water, and 2 days for the system to tap into that without any hindrance from land whatsoever. How much time do we have left? Less than 2 days. If the forecast is exactly right on the size and the strength and the speed and all that, if southeast Louisiana gets tropical storm conditions, that would start maybe breakfast time on Wednesday. If it reaches the Houston-Galveston area, that would be maybe dinner time on Wednesday. But things could speed up and change. So mainly you're going to have tomorrow to get ready, and then maybe a portion of Wednesday, depending on where you are. Wind-wise, we've got a hurricane watch just east of Houston over to the Lafayette, Louisiana area. Tropical storm watches surrounding that. Now, that doesn't mean you couldn't eventually change to a hurricane watch in Houston if things change to the left. Doesn't mean in New Orleans you might not end up being in a tropical storm or hurricane watch later if things change to the right. So this is just where the watches are in effect right now. Wind-wise. Now, with regard to water, we got a lot to worry about at the coast and inland as well. The storm surge watch goes from the Houston-Galveston area down near Freeport all the way around to the Mississippi coastline, and the watch, the risk actually goes a fair distance inland. This is especially in southwestern Louisiana. This is not just going to be a beachfront problem, okay? If you can't see the Gulf of Mexico, doesn't mean the Gulf of Mexico can't come see you, right? 7 to 11 feet of saltwater flooding above normally dry ground is expected somewhere in this area. Maybe not everywhere, but this is where the highest storm surge flooding values could be, and it's going to be no picnic farther to the east with 4 to 6 feet. And the other water problem, Mark, is going to be how much rain is going to fall from the sky. It's not just going to be a coastal event, it's going to be an inland event, and that starts Wednesday, goes into Wednesday night, into Thursday morning. Let's just take a brief look at the rainfall totals from the global models, and they've come into better agreement because the tracks from the exact runs of the Euro and the GFS have come into a little better agreement. It's focusing on the Texas-Louisiana border area, and look up into Arkansas. If that Euro model were to be correct, GFS not a whole lot better, not a whole lot different. But again, this is very track dependent, so these high rainfall totals that are half a foot to a foot or more could end up being realized in different places, depending on exactly where the track ends up panning out. Now let's check in with meteorologist Chris Warren, who is in Houston, Texas, a city, large one, that's preparing as Laura strengthens and moves closer. And again, Chris, I hope people do not take it to the bank that they're going to stay out of the cone if they're in the western suburbs. Things could actually change quite a bit, Chris.
The sun is down on Houston, and what was essentially a pretty normal day. Hot, of course, at summertime, and humid here in Houston. But when the sun comes up tomorrow, we're hoping to know a lot more, because Houston, where we are right now, just on the west side of downtown, Houston is on the east side of the cone, or just right there on the easternmost point of the cone, so really on the edge. And with our confidence in this storm coming on shore, possibly as a strong hurricane coming on shore sometime late Wednesday into Thursday, it's still possible that could happen here. However, being on the edge, it's also possible that it's not that bad here. So we have a lot to learn and not a lot of time to prepare and get ready. This is why having a plan in place is just so important that if you do get the call that it's time to go, or it's time to shut her up, or whatever hurricane preps you have to do, you're able to, and ready to do it, because frankly there's not a lot of time. So when the sun comes up here on Houston on Tuesday's the day. Tuesday's the day we're going to get a better idea of how strong it is, how strong it's going to be, and exactly where it is going to go. Where will Houston be on Tuesday by the end of the day into the cone? Is it a time to really kind of breathe a sigh of relief, or is it a time to essentially batten down the hatches? But what we do know for sure, time will tell.
And yet we know so many people can't wait for Tuesday with only a day before what could be a significant event. So right now, the city of Galveston in Texas has ordered all nursing homes to evacuate. City also ordered a voluntary evacuation order for some other parts of the city. So let's get an update on that. Mark Morgan, the Chief Emergency Management Officer for the Galveston area, joins us on the phone. Mark, thanks for joining us tonight.
You're quite welcome, Mark. At this time, we have Texas Task Force 1 here. The governor sent them down, and them kid. They're assisting us with evacuating the nursing homes here on the island. We have buses here, and we have an ambulance strike team en route to assist us with the most critical patients that we have.
And it is, of course, an island, so that adds added complexity. You have to make these decisions sooner than some other areas, correct?
That is correct, and we have one way in, one way out. And so if the tide comes up on us, just like we have now, it makes it more difficult, especially with two storms at once. And so we're trying to evacuate now in the middle of a small, a storm now that's approaching us. And then, of course, we have Laura that we're very concerned about being a catastrophic event.
Yeah, so with that, potential down the road, what's your timeline like? Tonight was the time for nursing homes and critical patients. How much time before you would have other types of people evacuated from the island?
So tomorrow we'll have a decision to make. We're going to look at the forecast tonight. The forecast has been somewhat uncertain this last week. It's starting to come together a little bit now. And so it'll help us with our decision-making process in the next day or so. We do have a Tuesday, Wednesday, or possibly Wednesday, Thursday impact from Laura. So whenever we make a decision for a mandatory, if we do that, it will have to probably be done tomorrow at some point.
Because it takes at least a decent amount of time to get everybody off the island.
It does, and so being on the Gulf Coast and having to evacuate through the city of Houston, we have to make sure we leave early. And the reason we do that is because we have to allow Houstonians the capability to leave also. We don't want to be into the situation where we had Hurricane Rita when everybody was stuck on the highway for 3 days.
And then this is happening with the background of the COVID pandemic going on. What are you telling people as they are getting ready, potentially evacuating? It's one thing if it's a nursing home going to a different cared facility somewhere else, but for the regular people, what are you hoping that they know and do if those words come from you guys tomorrow?
That's right, Mark. We're telling them that they need to bring their own PPE with them, and if they have to stop and get fuel to stay in the vehicle, make sure that they turn the vehicle off. But if they have to go get something out of the store, just have one person go in with their PPE on, get the items, and then come back into the car. We suggest that they try to distance themselves as much as possible, and if they can rent a hotel room, that would be preferable than staying in a group.
And I know you guys, practice for these scenarios and model these scenarios. What's your worst scenario? What are you really worried about tonight as this is exiting Cuba and entering the Gulf of Mexico? What are you watching for? What's really got you losing some sleep tonight?
I'm really worried about the track of the storm and not making the turn. And so here's what I'm concerned about, the trends. I'm not a weatherman, but I do watch the trends as an emergency management coordinator. The storm that we had last month that went down south rapidly intensified as it got close to the coast. And so what I'm concerned about this storm is that when it reaches the coast, it rapidly intensifies and goes straight instead of taking that right-hand turn. That's what worries us.
And gosh, you know that there's a little wiggle room in these forecasts. Do you think people are understanding that risk that Galveston to Houston corridor, although not at the center of the cone yet, may wind up being in that position in a day?
I think that they understand that process, but, we try to put that into our messaging to make sure that that is, relayed to them so that they understand what the risk is.
That is Mark Morgan, Galveston, Texas Emergency Management. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, and good luck over the next couple of days. I know it's a very busy time trying to keep everybody safe. Want to go now to hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb. Dr. Knabb, you were listening in on that. You're also worried about that potential for rapid organization and intensification of this storm over the Gulf.
Yeah, we almost always have some curveballs thrown at us by tropical storms and hurricanes in the last couple of days before landfall. That happened with some of the storms and hurricanes earlier this year. So don't count on Laura adhering to the exact track and intensity forecast. And again, we've got less than 2 days to get ready in the Houston-Galveston area, and even less than that to get ready in south central and southeastern Louisiana. So let's talk about the possibility of rapid intensification. Again, here's the exact track and intensity forecast, and look at, around the time of landfall, that would be something like a little after midnight on Thursday morning. The Hurricane Center has it at 105 miles an hour, and they would tell you they don't know for sure that that's what the max winds, the intensity will be at that time. Could be higher than that, could be lower than that. But I wanted to call your attention to the 1-day and the 2-day intensity forecast. Strong tropical storm and getting to Cat 2. Now, here is exactly 1 day from now. Here's exactly 2 days from now, around 10 p.m. Eastern, 2 days from now. Now, what are the chances, based on the latest modeling data that's coming out, that this could be a Category 2 about 1 day from now? Chances are about 1 in 3. And what are the chances that it could be a Category 3, around 115 miles an hour, 2 nights from now before making landfall? About 1 in 3. I mean, those chances are not trivial, okay? So there is the possibility that it gets stronger than forecast here, the possibility of rapid intensification. And what are some of the main factors that lead us to be concerned that this could happen? One is the recent intensity trend. It has not fallen apart over Cuba, and in recent hours has started to come back up in its convective organization and its max wind. So we're looking at the symmetry of the thunderstorms. Look at how it's starting to have that look of symmetry to it, at least at the middle levels as it starts to exit Cuba. So those are a couple of things in the near term that we're looking at. But once it gets out over the Gulf of Mexico, we got to look at what is the Gulf of Mexico like? What is the atmosphere like ahead of it in terms of the atmosphere? Well, again, it's about to leave land, and this number has gone up. So we know that the near-term factors, lead you to believe that it's going to be able to take advantage of that environment. And the radar at the long range starts to show some interesting turning there at mid-levels. But then if you back out, you see the wind shear that's affected Marco is not over the top of Laura, and the weak wind shear ahead is very, very concerning, as is the very warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. So be ready for changes in the forecast with Laura.
A lung cancer diagnosis can leave you holding your breath. But Bristol-Myers Squibb is working to change things by researching new kinds of medicines that could help you live longer, including options that are chemo-free, because we're committed to bringing new hope into lung cancer care. Learn about our lung cancer research at lungcancerresearch.com.
Jumbo Snacks! Jumbo Tiger Paw Jumbo Crunch! Jumbo Fruit Loops Jumbo Flavor! Unleash never-before-seen Jumbo Snacks! Jumbo fun anytime! It's Jumbo! It's for snacking! It's Jumbo Snacks!
With Domino's $5.99 mix and match deal, you can feed a family of 4 for about $3 per person. So we asked one of our families to help us make this commercial about that deal.
Enjoy your pizza!
Safely feed a family of 4 for about $3 per person with the $5.99 mix and match deal.
From Domino's!
As your uncle, I want you to know that on the road to life, there will be rough spots, and they will chew up your tires. I recently took a road trip to Greensville to attend a chili cook-off. Rough roads all the way down. I drove there on these Cooper Discoverer and Duramax tires. They're made with the durability of off-road tires, but for on-road driving. Without them, we might never know the winning bean-to-meat ratio of a good chili. And those are the things in life, my friend, worth driving towards. So go with the Coopers. Cooper! I'm hungry now.
Can't wait to tell everyone about AT&T's big 5G news.
AT&T has nationwide 5G?
Yep.
And that's faster?
Faster, yeah.
But is it reliable?
Uh-huh, and secure.
You should consider making a big deal about it.
Bigger?
I said bigger.
Oh, bigger deal, bigger than what I'm doing.
It's not complicated. A 5G network needs a 5G device. Now everyone, including existing customers, can get a free Samsung Galaxy Note 20 after trade-in.
John Tyson's motto was, "When better chickens are hatched, we will hatch them." It's why all of the Tyson chicken that bears his name is raised with no antibiotics ever. Every nugget, strip, and drumstick. Keep it real. Keep it Tyson.
These days, we need each other more than ever. That's why AARP created Community Connections, an online tool to find or create a mutual aid group, get help, or help those in need. Stay connected with AARP.
Did you help build New York or New Jersey? Did you work in the building trades or military or do industrial or automotive work where you were exposed to asbestos that led to a mesothelioma or lung cancer diagnosis? If so, you are a real hero. And Whites in Luxembourg wants to speak with you and help achieve justice and compensation.
Call 1-888-411-LAWS. That's 1-888-411-LAWS.
Hey, Luke, wake up. You fell asleep again.
Why do I always fall asleep on the bus after school? Why am I so tired?
That's what we always wondered. But then he was diagnosed with narcolepsy, so he was more than tired. Narcolepsy can affect anyone, children and adults. We waited too long to take action, but you don't have to.
Visit morethantired.com now. Learn about the 5 symptoms of narcolepsy, take the narcolepsy symptom screener, and find a sleep specialist. Don't wait. Visit morethantired.com today.
Unbelievable, this is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
An all-new season of Weather Gone Viral, Sunday night on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 84 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Tonight, mainly clear, low 78. Winds west-southwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Tuesday, thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. A few storms may be severe. High 93. Chance of rain 40%. Tuesday night, a mostly clear sky. Low 70. Winds northwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
I'm meteorologist Julie Martin tonight, and right now nearly 10 million under tropical alerts in the U.S. That includes Houston to Beaumont, Texas, over to Lake Charles and Lafayette, Louisiana. Storm surge watches up in purple as well, and power outages expected in Louisiana tonight. Crews are staging in Plaquemines Parish, a state of emergency in effect for Louisiana tonight. Evacuations ordered for coastal parishes. And in New Orleans, work crews spent today closing floodgates. In all, 689 gates are being monitored. Nearly 400 were closed today. Crews have also been pumping down canals. And live in New Orleans tonight, the governor's saying tomorrow is the last day for the state to prepare for Laura and wants everyone to take advantage of it. Storm surge watch remains in effect there tonight. Meanwhile, Laura brings squalls packing heavy rain and wind to parts of South Florida. This was a scene in Fort Myers just a few hours ago. No tropical watches or warnings here, but further south in the Keys, we still have those tropical storm warnings out. We're going to check in with Mike Seidel there coming up at 50 past the hour. And this is the type of weather Laura brought to Jamaica. Roads completely underwater, drivers getting stuck, winds there gusting over 70 miles an hour. So here's what we know right now about Tropical Storm Laura. Mandatory evacuations have been issued for all nursing and assisted living facilities in Galveston, Texas. Louisiana Governor John Bell Edwards tells residents, quote, Tuesday is your last day to prepare. Take advantage of it. The Louisiana National Guard has mobilized nearly 100 high water vehicles and 55 boats for rescue efforts. And Cameron, Louisiana has issued a mandatory evacuation order. A lot of emergency management officials getting ready for Laura. Dr. Knabb, you know very well that time is of the essence here, and it looks like this storm could certainly intensify.
Yeah, Julie, it's so important that we not only tell people what's coming and what could happen, but how much time you have left to get ready before the weather gets too dangerous to be doing any preparations, and what to actually do. So first of all, I want you to not discount what I'm about to say just because you're looking at a tropical storm. It's not going to stay that way. This is going to become a hurricane. We're quite certain of that. And we don't know exactly where it's going to go. So I'm talking to some of you who are outside the cone as well as folks who are inside the cone, because this could change. Impacts could definitely extend outside the cone. Maybe even the center circulation doesn't stay within the cone. And we've got till tomorrow late to get ready in southeast Louisiana, because you want to go to bed tomorrow night and be ready by the time you wake up Wednesday morning. And then in southeast Texas, the tropical storm conditions could arrive around Wednesday sunset time, if the forecast is exactly right. But what if it speeds up? And what if the wind field expands? Then the winds could actually start arriving in southeast Texas sometime Wednesday morning, and even earlier than that in southeast Louisiana. So tonight is the time to really make your list of what you're going to do, and then tomorrow is action day. And ideally, by the time you go to bed tomorrow night, you are done with your preparations and you've evacuated where you need to go according to local officials' instructions. So if you got your phone handy, I want you to come to your television screen and take a picture of this list, okay? This is your hurricane supplies checklist that you can compare with what you've already gotten so far, hopefully. And if not, this is what you want to get in the time you have left, in the day and a half or so to get ready. You want to have a gallon of water per person in your household per day to last for 7 days. Why up to 7 days? Because it could take a while for officials to get to you, for power to come back on, and so forth. Non-perishable food, including for your babies and your pets. And tonight or tomorrow, fill your prescriptions, because after the storm, the pharmacies might be closed for a while if the impact is significant. And get your over-the-counter medications as well. Get cash from the ATM, because if power is out after the storm, the credit cards aren't going to work, your contactless payment, electronics aren't necessarily going to work, and cash will be king. You want to stock your first aid kit tonight and get your battery-powered NOAA weather radio, ideally one that has television and radio bands on it. Get battery-powered LED lights, because they don't use up a lot of battery power. They burn nice and cool. And don't get candles. It is too easy to leave them unattended and lead to a fire. And then I highly recommend solar-powered or battery-powered USB chargers for your cell phones. This goes for people who are at the coast or inland to deal primarily with power outages and fending for yourself. Now, for those of you in coastal regions, and this is not just along the Gulf front, some of this storm surge risk goes a fair distance inland. That's where a storm surge watch is in effect. These are areas where officials might be telling you, or might have already told you, that you need to evacuate, because we're talking a significant saltwater rise, 7 to 11 feet above normally dry ground, that could penetrate some distance inland in the core of the storm surge risk area, and 4 to 6 feet farther east. No picnic either. So if you're told to evacuate, you want to plan ahead for evacuation. You don't want to think this all up at the last minute. If you don't know right now whether or not you live in an evacuation zone, find out right now and know what letter, what color your zone is, and then as soon as you know that, decide where you're going to go and how you're going to get there if told to evacuate. Ideally, you go to a friend's home that's not all that far away out of the evacuation zone. You want to shorten your distance, lessen your cost, and not clog the roads for very long. And if you're not in an evacuation zone, why don't you work it out with somebody who is in a vulnerable area so that you can be their evacuation destination. Now, if you can't watch us on television or you have to evacuate, you can also get the latest track and up-to-the-minute forecast from the Weather Channel, now on Sirius XM, Channel 721. We'll be live streaming through noon Eastern Time Thursday to keep you safe.
And Doug.
You know, Limu, after all these years, it's the ones that got away that haunt me the most. Because you're not like everybody else. That's why Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance. So you only pay for what you need. What? Oh, I said. Oh, this is my floor. No! Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
How do you make a Pinot Noir taste like no other? Start with grapes from 3 California regions. Push flavor in new directions. And put a bear on the label. Made like no other for a taste like no other. Mayomi. Flavor forward.
Introducing new Life Cuisine. For your lifestyle. High protein. Meatless. Gluten-free. Or low-carb lifestyle. Power up your day with new Life Cuisine. Delicious your way.
We know to wash our hands.
Here's a reminder from Cetaphil to wash your face, too. Dermatologist recommended Cetaphil washes away germs in 20 seconds and leaves skin moisturized and healthy. Show your sensitive skin some love with Cetaphil.
Water?
Water tastes like water, so we fixed it. Mio.
Valspar Signature holds up to common stains and cleans up easy. Discover what's possible at Lowe's.
Age-related macular degeneration may lead to severe vision loss.
So the National Eye Institute did 20 years of clinical studies on a formula only found in PreserVision.
If it were my vision, I'd ask my doctor about PreserVision.
It's the most studied eye vitamin brand.
If it were my vision, I'd look into PreserVision.
Only PreserVision AREDS 2 contains the exact nutrient formula recommended by the NEI to help reduce the risk of moderate to advanced AMD progression.
I have AMD. It is my vision, so my plan includes PreserVision.
Right now, AARP's work is more important than ever. Access to health care, affordable prescription drugs, opportunities to save for the future. That's what AARP fights for because that's what everyone deserves.
John Tyson's motto was, "When better chickens are hatched, we will hatch them." It's why all of the Tyson chicken that bears his name is raised with no antibiotics ever. Every nugget, strip, and drumstick. Keep it real. Keep it Tyson.
With Domino's $5.99 mix and match deal, you can feed a family of 4 for about $3 per person. So we asked one of our families to help us make this commercial about that deal. Safely feed a family of 4 for about $3 per person with the $5.99 mix and match deal.
Frank's Red Hot. I put that on everything. Like pizza, your coworker's lunch, whatever this is. Astronaut food.
And astronauts?
Everything.
Yum.
It's the perfect blend of flavor and heat. I put that on everything.
Make the summer yours with a twist of flavor. Discover the Mediterranean flavors and gentle bubbles of San Pellegrino Essenza. Add a twist of flavor.
Whether holding down the fort or bouncing back to school, childhood is always in session. So keep feeding us right with Sun-Made snacks. Just like when you were a kid. Delicious, made with whole fruit, Sun-Made.
Check out this new video coming to us here at the Weather Channel. Look at this. Whew! That was in one of the bands well away from, oh gosh, it was like instant, well away from the center of Laura and Marco for that matter, right? This is from Marco's rain that was just sent way north and east. This is Panama City Beach in Florida and an intense lightning strike there. There was a tornado watch, still a small sliver of a tornado watch in the Florida Panhandle still tonight. Remember, we've got live coverage here. We're covering 2 different storms for you. Marco, which is basically spinning out reasonably quickly, and Laura, that's really just getting started, expected to strengthen over the next couple of days as it approaches the Gulf of Mexico coastline again. Now, Laura already brought significant wind gusts to places like Key West, hundreds of miles away from the center, and winds gusting to near 70. So this is an intense storm, a growing storm. We're going to talk a lot about Laura coming up. I do want to tell you what's still happening with Marco. The good news here, there's not that much left. This is a look at the visible imagery from earlier today. That was that center devoid of any action, came into the mouth of the Mississippi River. All the shower and thunderstorm activity was off to the north and east, including where we had that lightning strike. And even with that, a very disorganized center coming through near the mouth of the Mississippi River. Shell Beach, 2.4 feet of storm surge. Just imagine what it's going to be like for some of you along the Gulf Coast, the vulnerable spots of Mississippi and Louisiana for storm surge when we have an organized and potentially significantly large hurricane coming in. Wind speeds could be very strong. We'll talk about that coming up. Here's a look at the rain that's still going. A little cluster of storms coming towards Pensacola. That may wind up being our next severe threat, although it is outside of the tornado watch area that's still in place. That goes until 11 o'clock for just a couple of counties now. And we're not necessarily done. There's still that old low that's going to be spinning, and that will contribute to a severe weather threat tomorrow in southeast Louisiana and much of Louisiana and Mississippi by Wednesday, which again is also when we start turning our attention to the next storm, because Tropical Storm Laura is knocking on the doorstep. Will likely become Hurricane Laura before too much longer, expected to head towards the Gulf Coast. Now, is New Orleans still at risk to some degree? Is Galveston certainly still a potential there? Want to bring in hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb. Dr. Knabb, the planes are out there. We're fine-tuning this data, and yet there are still some questions on the exact landfall point. We certainly don't know that yet.
No, we still have a couple days before the center of circulation comes ashore, plus or minus a few hours, and there's a lot of time for the storm to change its mind on a number of issues with regard to exactly where it's going to go, how strong, how large it's going to be. Expect some changes to the forecast. And by the way, new forecast coming out within the half hour. As soon as it comes out before 10 p.m. Central, 11 Eastern, we will bring it to you. Right now, as of the 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central advisory, winds at 65 miles an hour. It's possible, based on the aircraft data we've seen so far, that the winds have come up a little bit. I don't think it's quite to a hurricane yet, but I don't think it'll be too long after it completely clears western Cuba overnight tonight or tomorrow morning to become a hurricane, moving quickly west-northwest at 20 miles an hour. Look at all those thunderstorms, especially right over water, right near Cuba. So as soon as land is out of the way, I think it will be off to the races in many ways in terms of its intensification. We don't know exactly how strong it will be. 105 miles an hour plus or minus when it comes ashore, and it is not a guarantee that the center even stays within that cone. Things could change over the next couple of days because there's still a wide spread in the track models. These are just the European model solutions that are both east and west of the cone. Yes, a lot of them are inside the cone, but a lot are not. So there could be a lot of changes over the next couple of days. You've got less than 2 days to get ready for the winds of tropical storm force arriving. It could be Wednesday morning in southeast Louisiana. It could be Wednesday evening in southeast Texas, maybe even a little sooner than that. So tonight and tomorrow are your preparation times. Hurricane watches just east of Houston over to the Lafayette, Louisiana area. Tropical storm watch does include Houston for now. That could be changed to a hurricane watch if things slide in that direction, or it could just be tropical storm warning if things don't. New Orleans, I would keep heads up on this too, because not only do you have the wind threat to deal with in your area, but at least not in metro New Orleans, but in southeast Louisiana, there is a storm surge watch that's in effect. Now, I want to highlight a really important aspect of the storm surge watch, okay? This is a land-based warning, and look how far inland from the immediate Gulf front that the storm surge watch goes here in southwestern and south central Louisiana. This is not just going to be a Gulf front threat. There is the possibility of life-threatening storm surge going miles inland. I'm sure some of you in Lake Charles, for example, can remember how far inland the storm surge of past hurricanes has come. You don't have to live right on the Gulf front for the Gulf of Mexico waters to come to you, and in that zone, the saltwater flooding could be as high as 7 to 11 feet above normally dry ground. Now, we have a team of meteorologists spread out across the Gulf Coast to bring you the latest as Hurricane Laura gets closer.
It's about the humans. These humans, those humans, Groovin and Golden. It's about getting more than health insurance and a partner who listens and acts. Humana calls it human care. It's talking to a doctor from your couch or helping you find a cheaper prescription before you ask. It's helping you fix the rugs so you don't fall and keeping you social, online or off. It's getting to know you so you can be your healthiest. That's our superpower. That's human care from Humana.
Through our love promise, Subaru and our retailers are proud to be replanting 500,000 trees in areas devastated by wildfires. Subaru, more than a car company.
11 days on the open seas. Still no sign of the world's mightiest predator. So we're attempting to coerce a visit. With Devour white cheddar mac and cheese with bacon.
Oh, that looks good.
Astounding.
Eat like an animal. Devour. How do you make a Pinot Noir taste like no other? Start with grapes from 3 California regions. Push flavor in new directions. And put a bear on the label. Made like no other for a taste like no other. Mayomi. Flavor forward.
DiGiorno has 7 delicious crusts, and your family food critics will rave. Rising crust is fresh baked deliciousness. Stuffed crust is literally mouth-watering. There's a 5-star pizza for everyone in your family to love. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
When it's especially important to keep skin clean, keep reaching for Cetaphil. Recommended by dermatologists. Awarded by Allure. And most of all, loved by skin. Cetaphil, the cleanser sensitive skin loves.
When you have diabetes, managing your blood sugar is crucial. Try Boost Glucose Control. The patented blend is clinically shown to help manage blood sugar levels. It provides 60% more protein than the leading diabetes nutrition shake. Try Boost Glucose Control.
I'm Jimmy Dean, and sausage is a great deal like life. You get out of it about what you put into it. You put in quality, and you're going to get out quality, and that's what we do with Jimmy Dean. You have a wonderful day, all right?
Hey, can I...
Safe drivers save 40%. Guys.
Safe drivers save 40%.
Safe drivers save 40%.
Safe drivers save 40%.
That's safe drivers save 40%.
It is. That's safe drivers save 40%.
It's right there.
It's him.
Safe drivers do save 40%. Click or call for a quote today.
It's a beautiful night here in Houston. It's hot. It's summertime coming after a beautiful day. Tomorrow, similar. Might be a few showers, but what's not going to be similar tomorrow, Tuesday, is going to be the fact that we're going to know a lot more. We're going to know if we can continue to make plans for the weekend, or here in Houston, if we have to get ready for a major storm coming into the city. I mean, it's possible it'll be business as usual this weekend. It's also possible here in Houston that the power could still be out from a storm that could be a strong storm with major impacts, flash flooding, very strong winds that will potentially impact Houston Wednesday going into Thursday. But at this point, it's this or this. We just don't know yet, because Houston is on the edge, like a lot of cities that are on the edge of the cone and the edge of our seats, trying to figure out what Laura ultimately will be and where it ultimately will go. But what we do feel pretty good about is the fact that it is heading to the Gulf Coast. Texas and Louisiana does look like the starting point for this storm to move on shore. But it's not going to be the end. It's going to stay pretty strong going up either into Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and then eventually, what I think is amazing, a strong rain producer and wind producer going all the way over to the mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, so that's true. So many inland will be feeling the effects from Laura. I want to give you a quick kind of setup, what's happening right now, and that is that our center of our storm is exiting the northwest side of Cuba, about to get into the very favorable environment of the Gulf of Mexico, away from land interaction. Expect strengthening from here on out, and we're already at a 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm. Plenty of wind, gusting to 33 in Havana, gusting to 43 in Key West, after earlier gusts were close to 70 and had some tree damage across the Keys. Where do we go from here? Well, pretty good confidence now in the multi-model consensus, meaning all the different versions of the models that we're going to see an approach somewhere near the Texas-Louisiana coastline. So those are areas that really need to start to prepare. Here's that zoom in for you. There's wiggle room here, right? Low does not mean no chance. There is still a chance that the storm could come in that direction, but, you know, starting to focus in closer to that Texas-Louisiana border, and that will bring all the impacts there as well. A core of extreme wind. Right now the forecast calls for 105. Not out of the question at all to have stronger winds than that. And that wind moves the water. I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about the storm surge potential. Starting to get these images in from the National Hurricane Center and the Storm Surge Forecasting Group. Some really intense numbers. The red on here is above 9 feet. Now, away from the center, very track dependent, away from that center by a good distance. This is Lake Pontchartrain. There could be significant storm surge flooding approaching that I-55 corridor. Closer, of course, to where the center goes, more widespread, significant numbers of surge. But look how far inland this goes. This is Lake Charles. The Gulf is down here, bottom of the screen. Lake Charles, because of the river being there, you could have storm surge all the way up that far and farther north. So many people need to pay attention to that component of the storm because it is such a big part of this story. And Dr. Knabb has been talking about this. You got to watch the trends tonight. We could have rapid intensification over the Gulf of Mexico. like we've seen so many times before. This is not something that is new to the world of meteorology. Many storms that have taken this very similar path actually went through times of rapid intensification. So let's use the Wayback Machine. Hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb, it's important to kind of look at history. It tells us what the future may hold for these storms.
Yeah, Mark, we can learn a lot from history, but we also have to realize that every storm is different. Laura is not going to do exactly what any of these past storms did, but we can learn some things from Rita in 2005, from Ike in 2008, Isaac in 2012, and even Barry from last year. They all can teach us something. Now, I want to go back to the Laura track and intensity forecast just to kind of set the table here of how important it is to realize that we can't guarantee the center will stay within the cone. It might not. And we can't guarantee that the intensity will be exactly 105 miles an hour around the time of landfall. All these past storms threw us some curveballs, and I would not be shocked if Laura doesn't surprise us in some way. In part is concerning because the European model ensemble members, the alternative scenarios, are both inside and outside of the cone. They occupy a pretty wide berth there. If they were in much better agreement, I would have a little more confidence in telling you that the center would probably stay within the cone. Just don't know that for sure. Now, it is interesting that the Weather Service models, both the global models and the dynamical hurricane-related models, are in pretty good agreement, but in some ways they are based on the same general modeling system. That doesn't represent all of the possibilities, and then all the possibilities for intensity are anywhere from low-end hurricane to, in some cases, the dynamical models, a significant major hurricane. So what do we do with all of that? Well, let's at least learn from history. Rita was a Category 5 hurricane over the center of the Gulf of Mexico, and it was a Category 2 as it was intensifying as it went through the Florida Straits. So it was stronger at this longitude than Laura is now, but the tracks significantly shifted to the right. So Rita, it wasn't all that long ago, shows us how track can change dramatically and change the evacuation. Ike was a major hurricane out here, but then it weakened over western Cuba. But even though it was a very broad, disorganized inner core, it still made it from Category 1 to just below Category 3 as it crossed the Gulf of Mexico. So Laura, that's beginning to organize its inner core, could certainly intensify at that rate and rub up against at least the border of Cat 3. Now, Isaac in 2012 also spent a lot of time over the Dominican Republic and Cuba, and it still made it to hurricane without even going all the way across the Gulf of Mexico. Laura will have more time over water and probably is better organized than Isaac. So Isaac is another good example of how something can make it to hurricane. And I want to show Barry really quickly because it reminds us of the inland impacts of even a Cat 1 hurricane in the Louisiana, Arkansas area. We had record rainfall for the state of Arkansas just last year. So if another system like Laura coming up in that same corridor, get ready for big-time inland flooding. We have a team of meteorologists spread out across the Gulf Coast to bring you the latest as Hurricane Laura gets closer. Live team coverage continues around the clock right here on the Weather Channel.
Introducing new Life Cuisine for your lifestyle. High protein, meatless, gluten-free, or low-carb lifestyle. Power up your day with new Life Cuisine. Delicious your way.
How do you make a Pinot Noir taste like no other? Start with grapes from 3 California regions. Push flavor in new directions. And put a bear on the label. Made like no other for a taste like no other. Mayomi, flavor forward.
When it's especially important to keep skin clean, keep reaching for Cetaphil. Recommended by dermatologists. Awarded by Allure. And most of all, loved by skin. Cetaphil, the cleanser sensitive skin loves.
Ugh, is there a natural litter that actually works?
At Tidy Cats, litterventions come naturally. Naturally strong unscented with activated charcoal or new scented clean lemongrass with plant extracts. 100% natural, 100% powerful. There's a Tidy Cats for that.
Do you know why I love Coffee Mate? Well, it's triple churn and 2 times richer than milk for one perfect cup of coffee. Think I love Coffee Mate too much? No, impossible.
Coffee Mate. Coffee's perfect mate.
Age is just a number, and mine's unlisted.
Try Boost High Protein with 20 grams of protein for muscle health versus only 16 grams in Ensure High Protein. And now enjoy Boost High Protein in new Cafe Mocha flavor.
It's so good to see you guys.
Han, out here.
Are we on yet?
Oh.
I thought we were doing a Zoom thing.
Confused?
No.
Maybe you just need a Snickers.
That's a buffalo flatbread bullseye for my mouth to aim at. Oh, hiding, huh? The new grilled buffalo chicken papadilla. Tangy buffalo sauce, grilled chicken, and melty cheese for just $6. Papa John.
Spectrum Mobile is now the fastest growing mobile provider in the nation, growing faster than Verizon and AT&T, and even growing faster than T-Mobile. It's easy to see why. Spectrum delivers the fastest overall speeds and is the most reliable mobile service coast to coast. There are no contracts, added taxes, or fees. Switch and you could save up to 40% and see why Spectrum Mobile is the fastest growing mobile provider. Learn more at spectrummobile.com.
Mama.
Why do I keep falling asleep during the day? What's making me so tired? I kept asking myself these questions. It felt like I was more than tired. Then I was diagnosed with narcolepsy. There are 5 major symptoms. I waited too long to take action, but you don't have to. Visit morethantired.com now. Take the narcolepsy symptom screener and find a sleep specialist to share your results. Don't wait. Visit morethantired.com today.
Unbelievable, this is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
An all-new season of Weather Gone Viral, Sunday night on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 84 degrees under fair skies. Tonight, mainly clear, low 78. Winds west-southwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Tuesday, thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. A few storms may be severe. High 93. Chance of rain 40%. Tuesday night, a mostly clear sky. Low 70. Winds northwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
We have a brand new full advisory from the National Hurricane Center on Tropical Storm Laura. Yes, it's still a tropical storm, but the Hurricane Center is making it abundantly clear they're not going to be for much longer. This is going to be a hurricane soon as it gets closer and closer to being fully occupied over the eastern Gulf of Mexico. It's still tangling with western Cuba somewhat, but there is an increase in the organization of the thunderstorm activity around what is probably the beginnings of a developing inner core. Now, it doesn't have an eye wall yet. The low-level center and the mid-level swirl might not be completely vertically stacked and organized, but it's well on its way. It's still moving west-northwest at 20 miles an hour, so still moving along pretty quickly. So its time over Cuba is very short from now to this point forward, and it will be over the Gulf of Mexico for the next couple of days. Now, we've taken down the watches and warnings down in the Keys. Otherwise, no changes to the watches and warnings for the northern Gulf Coast. Still the hurricane watch, tropical storm watch, storm surge watch. We'll go through those again in a little bit. So here's the new track and intensity forecast. The main change is a little bit of an uptick in the maximum intensity before landfall. The bottom line is the expectation is this is going to strengthen from this point forward all the way up until the time of landfall. Not every Gulf of Mexico hurricane does that. When you think back to the likes of Katrina and Rita and many others, they would peak over the central Gulf and then weaken but get larger. Laura looks like it's going to be on an intensification trend all the way up to landfall, so maybe it doesn't end up being the largest hurricane we've ever seen, but it certainly is concerning just how intense could this become. I would not be shocked if this number goes over the Cat 3 threshold in future forecasts. That is certainly within the realm of possibility. In fact, when we look at the model output over the next couple of days. Now, this Wednesday evening forecast, that's the 48-hour forecast, valid a little less than 48 hours from now. The chances of this being more than Cat 3 are getting close to 40%. And those numbers might go up if the inner core starts to get its act together. And in fact, this number, the 24-hour forecast of 85 miles an hour, there's about a 1 in 3 chance that it's 100 miles an hour, Cat 2 by that time. So don't be shocked if it ends up being stronger than this. Now, of course, this could pull a fast one on us and maybe in a good way and end up being weaker than forecast, but it just doesn't seem like that's the trend. Just waiting for it to organize after interacting with Cuba, and it looks like it's about to do that. Now, here's one of the really difficult aspects of the forecast of Laura, the track. Now, you might think, well, okay, these storms tend to behave themselves. This is going to stay inside the cone. Take that to the bank. No. I mean, if all the models that we rely on were in very close agreement, near or within that cone, then we could say that maybe. But in this case, there's still the concerning fact that these alternative track scenarios from the European modeling system have many tracks that are not only some inside the cone, but a lot of them outside the cone. So we can't guarantee that this is going to behave itself track-wise. So that's a concern. Meanwhile, the U.S. models, the global model, the GFS, and the dedicated hurricane models are in much better agreement within that cone, but they're kind of all related to one another a little bit more closely, and this doesn't represent all of the possibilities of an ensemble system. So there's still track uncertainty. Don't tune out if you're not inside the cone. But besides, even if the center stays within the cone, the impacts could go outside of that. The winds of Tropical Storm 4 still expected to arrive southeast Louisiana around Wednesday morning. And if they get to southeastern Texas, around sunset on Wednesday. That's assuming a perfect forecast, but I would utilize Tuesday to get ready so that when you go to bed Wednesday, you're all set, and whatever happens on Wednesday, you are already ready. Hurricane watches are still the same as before, tropical storm watch is still the same as before, and the storm surge watch still the same as before. And Mark, I'll highlight again how far inland this risk goes over southwestern and south central Louisiana. This could be a really significant storm surge event, and these numbers, 7 to 11 feet, could go up if the confidence in it getting stronger than currently forecast goes up.
And that's a really scary number already, and the fact that it could go even higher. I think it's important to also point out that this is not Marco. Similar spots, but this will have a much bigger wind field, a much bigger surge threat, bigger rain threat, bigger tornado threat. I mean, all of that could be a much different setup for Laura.
I mean, Laura and Marco couldn't be more different. The only similarities is the part of the coastline that they are impacting. And some of you have now gone under a storm surge watch again, like in Marco, but this is no Marco. This is going to be a much higher end event. And you've been showing Marco tonight, lingering and weakening near the coast. But Laura is coming barreling inland, and this is going to be a big-time inland wind and rainfall and maybe severe weather event.
Yeah, so let's talk about those inland impacts. It's been so rainy this spring into summer in, say, the Ohio Valley, even the Tennessee Valley. Some of this tropical moisture is headed that way next.
Yeah, and that's a big part of the reason why the concern for flooding Wednesday into Thursday for starters is as high as it is. I mean, Laura's going to be moving along, and maybe you'd think, well, okay, this isn't going to stall like a Harvey or something like that and dump several feet of rain. But because it's so wet in this part of the country throughout the summer so far, flooding will happen easily.
So, location, location, location. These impacts could be severe for some of you, and we're going to break down exactly where, especially as we get closer. So stay with the Weather Channel for live continuing coverage through this very busy week in the tropics with a team of meteorologists along the Gulf Coast, bringing you live conditions from the...
A lung cancer diagnosis can leave you holding your breath. But Bristol-Myers Squibb is working to change things by researching new kinds of medicines that could help you live longer, including options that are chemo-free, because we're committed to bringing new hope into lung cancer care. Learn about our lung cancer research at lungcancerresearch.com.
Can't wait to tell everyone about AT&T's big 5G news.
AT&T has nationwide 5G?
Yep.
And that's faster?
Faster, yeah.
But is it reliable?
Uh-huh, and secure.
You should consider making a big deal about it.
Bigger?
I said bigger.
Oh, bigger deal, bigger than what I'm doing.
It's not complicated. A 5G network needs a 5G device. Now everyone, including existing customers, can get a free Samsung Galaxy Note 20 after trade-in.
So Dish lets you share your TV with your family on multiple devices. Why?
Sweetie, forgot something. Thank you.
Because we know one thing's for sure. It's a little less scary leaving home when you can take a little bit of it with you.
Share your TV on 5 devices, no extra charge. Dish, tuned in to you.
This summer, we've all got miles to make up. Miles to the job site, to the campsite, and anything else we set our sights on. Miles back to those who can make this summer mean more than ever. We can help you get the most out of those miles during the Ram Summer Clearance Event.
Right now, get $1,250 bonus cash on the 2020 Ram 3500. Go to ram.com to shop and buy today.
Make the summer yours with a twist of flavor. Discover the Mediterranean flavors and gentle bubbles of San Pellegrino Essenza. Add a twist of flavor.
That feeling when, yep, they've eaten everything. Keep them full with Hot Pockets. Premium pepperoni, real cheese, and that buttery garlic crust. Literally built to satisfy.
Hot Pockets.
That's a buffalo flatbread bullseye for my mouth to aim at. Oh, hiding, huh? The new grilled buffalo chicken papadilla. Tangy buffalo sauce, grilled chicken, and melty cheese for just $6. Papa John's.
How do you make a Pinot Noir taste like no other? Start with grapes from 3 California regions. Push flavor in new directions. And put a bear on the label. Made like no other for a taste like no other. Mayomi. Flavor forward.
All right, welcome back to our continuing coverage of Tropical Storm Laura here on the Weather Channel. We have the brand new full track and intensity forecast update. A new advisory from the Hurricane Center that just came out moments ago. It is still a tropical storm, but not much longer. It will be by breakfast time tomorrow that this becomes a hurricane if the current forecast pans out. I mean, really, now that the center is starting to leave Cuba, this could wrap up into a hurricane at any time. So the hurricane hunters will continue to fly into this, and we will continue to update you all night long on how quickly Laura takes advantage of the fact that it is not going to be interacting with land anymore. And for the next 2 days, it has the warm waters of the Gulf and the weak shear in the atmosphere to intensify, and it could do so very significantly. Now, right now, it's moving still pretty quickly west-northwest at 20 miles an hour, but it will be slowing down and hanging a right. Pressure's coming down to 996 millibars, and just look at the presentation on in the infrared satellite. It's gaining organization. It's almost like it knows exactly where the Gulf of Mexico it is, and it's thinking, okay, I'm here, I'm going to take that fuel and I'm going to strengthen. And the Hurricane Center intensity forecast has come up a little bit more again. It peaks out at 110 miles per hour at the 48-hour point, which is valid 7 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. Now, they would tell you they don't know exactly what the intensity will be at that time, but given that that's a little bit offshore, there would still be more time after that for it to continue to strengthen, because we expect a strengthening trend all the way from now until landfall. So there is really, it's starting to become the expectation that we're going to have something at the major hurricane threshold, at least a Category 3 at landfall. Could be a little less than that, could be more than that, but we got to start thinking major hurricane coming, okay? And we've got less than 2 days to get ready for it. Also have to continue to emphasize that the center of circulation is not guaranteed to stay within this cone. There are a lot of models that support this forecast, but there are still some model tracks that we rely on to judge the uncertainty in the forecast that tell us there's still a possibility that the center goes either left outside of the cone or right outside of the cone. Even if the center stays within the cone, the impacts can extend outside of it. So please don't buy into the myth that if you're outside the cone, that you're out of danger. That could lead to big-time trouble. Now, the Weather Service models do have a lot of agreement along a track that's pretty close to the center of that cone, but these are very few number of models. This is not an ensemble, a collection of reasonable possibilities. But we do know it's going to be going over extremely warm water in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, how much time do you have left to get ready for this? You got to get ready by the time the winds of tropical storm force first arrive. That's expected to happen in southeastern Louisiana on Wednesday morning. If it's southeast Texas that gets the tropical storm conditions arriving, then that would happen probably around sunset on Wednesday. But, if it strengthens or speeds up, the wind field expands, that could happen a little bit sooner than these time frames. So I would use Tuesday to get ready. Hurricane watches have not changed. Starts east of Houston, goes through Lafayette, Louisiana. Tropical storm watch still in effect for Houston. But again, this is subject to change depending upon whether or not the forecast track changes at all. So I would not let down your guard at all if you are in Houston or New Orleans. And then, Mark, I want to keep emphasizing how this storm surge watch depiction reveals how this is not just going to be a Gulf front storm surge threat. This storm surge is going to go miles inland to places potentially like Lake Charles or Lafayette. Lake Calcasieu is known for taking Gulf of Mexico water and carrying it miles and miles inland. So a lot of people either are under or could be soon under evacuation instructions.
Yeah, gosh, 7 to 11 feet is a big number. I want to ask you, maybe kind of focused on the cone, the forecast cone. Sometimes those forecast cones are kind of right down the middle, right? There's a little bit of wiggle room to the east and to the west. There's a little bit of wiggle room to a weaker wind speed or a stronger wind speed. I don't think this one's really weighted the same way for location shifting or strength shifting. What are your thoughts on where the risk to this changing might be?
Well, given that we have European model ensemble tracks, alternate scenarios that are left of the left edge of the cone and right of the right edge of the cone, I can't predict how the forecast is going to change. Now, we do have a tool in the box that will hopefully bring things into better clarity overnight. Tonight, the NOAA G4 jet has been flying, and that's been collecting data all across the Gulf of Mexico and in the periphery of the tropical storm. They're dropping dropsondes in the environment. That goes into the models that are chugging along right now, and that output will be available overnight. And on the 5 a.m. advisory, maybe we'll have a collection of models to look at that are in better agreement. But I don't know which way this is going to change or if this will just focus in on the current track. It's really unknown at this point.
It seems like more of those ensemble members go left of the cone than right, though. I mean, you're right that they're on both sides. Or are you just saying, well, they could all shift together and we can't look at one model run that way?
Yeah, you're correct. If you count the number of solutions that are to the left of the cone, there's a few more over there than that are to the right. But I don't know which way it will end up nudging from this point forward. I mean, if everything, sometimes, subsequent forecasts, they keep trending in one direction. We're not seeing that kind of behavior. We're still seeing just a big spread focused around an average that's close to the middle of this cone, but with, options on either side.
Sure. So let's take the risk of the winds steady state right on that forecast, a little bit lower, a little bit higher. That still moves a lot of water. I mean, 7 to 11 feet of storm surge, that's up to the roof line of some buildings.
Yeah, now let's remember, I'm sure a lot of you in southwest Louisiana will remember Hurricane Rita. What was the intensity of Rita when it came ashore near the Texas-Louisiana border? High-end Cat 2, borderline Cat 3. It was right at that threshold where this is currently forecast to be. Now, Rita was a former Cat 5 and it was really large, but there's no telling, just how large this will be. And it could end up being more intense than Rita. So it could rival Rita's storm surge in some spots. So that just gives you one comparison to make. I'm not saying it's going to play out exactly like Rita. Every storm's different, but Rita was really bad in some areas, and this could be very bad with storm surge.
In your experience at, talking to emergency managers after being at the National Hurricane Center, when a forecast is like this with a risk that it could go even higher, when do calls have to be made for evacuations? And this is a large area of the coast that has that bright red color on it right now. Even the lower colors could be a life-threatening storm surge?
Yeah, excellent question. And two major issues immediately come to mind. Number one is, for a long time, emergency managers have been trained by the Hurricane Center, by their meteorologist colleagues, to always plan for at least a category stronger than the exact forecast says. But now with these new storm surge products and storm surge watches and warnings, those take into account the possibility. You showed the potential storm surge flooding map, what the location-specific storm surge values are. Those take into account that it could end up being stronger. So they have more tools than they used to, but also how much time do they have to call an evacuation when things change is highly dependent on the community. Small communities can pivot quickly. A big metro area like Houston, that's a much different story. You need much more lead time on big changes.
And so the people in Houston are watching this very carefully, including our own meteorologists who are in the field tonight, and that includes Chris Warren in Houston, a city that is preparing as Laura is moving into the Gulf, getting closer and strengthening. Chris.
The sun is down on Houston, and what was essentially a pretty normal day. Hot, of course, it's summertime, and humid here in Houston. But when the sun comes up tomorrow, we're hoping to know a lot more, because Houston, where we are right now, just on the west side of downtown, Houston is on the east side of the cone, or just right there on the easternmost point of the cone, so really on the edge. And with our confidence in this storm coming on shore, possibly as a strong hurricane coming on shore sometime late Wednesday into Thursday, it's still possible that could happen here. However, being on the edge, it's also possible that it's not that bad here. So we have a lot to learn and not a lot of time to prepare and get ready. This is why having a plan in place is just so important that if you do get the call that it's time to go, or it's time to shut her up, or whatever hurricane preps you have to do, you're able to, and ready to do it, because frankly there's not a lot of time. So when the sun comes up here on Houston on Tuesday's the day. Tuesday's the day we're going to get a better idea of how strong it is, how strong it's going to be, and exactly where it is going to go. Where will Houston be on Tuesday by the end of the day into the cone? Is it a time to really kind of breathe a sigh of relief, or is it a time to essentially batten down the hatches? But what we do know for sure, time will tell.
And Chris, it's so important for people to stay tuned to Weather Channel over the next couple of days, because so many things could change so quickly that could dictate you taking a different action and maybe changing and pivoting very quickly. And one of the components to this is the strength. We also have to deal with the possibility that the storm doesn't behave along the track, and maybe it goes outside the cone, or at least the impacts go way outside the cone. But about the intensity, here's the latest intensity forecast from the Hurricane Center, and it has ticked upward, okay? If you look at the 48-hour forecast valid Wednesday evening, it's now up to 110 miles an hour, and it's a little bit offshore, so that leaves open a little time to reach 115, that Cat 3 threshold. Yes, that's a human invented threshold, but it's a pretty good barometer, if I may use that analogy, for major hurricane should get our attention, right? Especially when we're talking about wind and its ability to generate storm surge. Now, to talk about these two forecast points, I want to highlight that it is still possible that it could be stronger than that. This is pretty rapid intensification, but it could be even more rapid. In fact, the chances that Tuesday evening that it's up to 100 miles an hour up at Cat 2 is about 1 in 3. That's a pretty significant chance. And the chances that once we get to this Wednesday evening time frame that it's exceeding the 115 is about 1 in 3, almost 40%. So do not be shocked if these numbers end up going up some more. Now, what do we look at to try to anticipate rapid intensification? One is the recent intensity trend. It's very notable and concerning that the tropical storm has not weakened. In fact, it has, in some ways, strengthened a little bit while over Cuba. And it looks like the thunderstorms are getting more symmetric. And now that it's getting over the Gulf of Mexico, we expect with that weak wind shear ahead, and not just at the surface, but warm water to some depth over the Gulf of Mexico. That loop current is right here. all signs, Mark, point to a significant chance of rapid intensification, jumping categories quickly over the next couple of days.
And that is a scary potential because we know what's down the road. Once the storm enters the Gulf of Mexico, it's really hard to get out of there without direct impacts to people.
Yeah, that's the worst thing about the Gulf of Mexico, right? Once a big hurricane gets in the Gulf, we know it's going to be bad for somebody and a lot of somebodies. And there's going to be a lot of people, not just at the coast, but inland, that are going to feel the wind and water effects of Laura.
Important to remember that, these are heat engines, but they're transporting that heat from near the equator to near the pole. To do that, they don't stay near the waters, right? They don't end when they hit landfall. This is going to be an inland flood event over the next couple of days. So let's spend a little bit of time to talk about where that risk goes next. Because even as we don't really have the exact landfall point down, down pat yet, even though we are getting better agreement somewhere between Texas to Louisiana, the path after that doesn't have a lot of wiggle room. We know we've got a big high pressure area off to the east, so after landfall, we're not cutting straight across the southeast. There's high pressure in the way. We also know that there's an approaching cold front dropping down from the north, so we'll only be able to go so far north before starting to make that turn. This cold front is going to be moving quickly south and east, so getting that timing right on the models is going to be crucial as well. That is going to be the kicker, the forcing mechanism to get whatever's left from Laura, send it out towards the mid-Atlantic. Now, there will be a lot of that tropical moisture still, maybe even a core of tropical winds kind of riding along and pushed out ahead of that front, but also stretching out. So be prepared for much heavier rains here in the mid-Atlantic than you would have seen given the same front had our tropical system not been there. Let's kind of take the temperature, if you will, of what kind of rains we could be seeing, down the road here. The European model coming right up towards Louisiana, starting to stretch out that heavy rains along our front. Notice the yellows on here, going all the way from central Tennessee up into the mid-Atlantic. That's some of that tropical moisture stretching out along that approaching cold front. USGFS model, not that different, okay? Yes, that is very track dependent, especially for this part of the rain, but once that core, no matter where that heavy part of the rainfall forecast goes, stretches out along that boundary, we're going to have a large area of the east that sees much more rain than they otherwise would have. And gosh, it has been so soggy in the east that we're setting the stage for more flooding. A quick look at how one model, the European model, shows that rainfall stretching out, coming across Louisiana and Texas. Arkansas could get hit hard, then curling along our front into the Tennessee and the Ohio valleys, really, as we stretch out, going all the way into the northeast corridor. That front will also have some severe weather. There's a severe weather component in the northeast tonight, and as well as the Midwest. We'll also be looking at active storms well out ahead of that first boundary tomorrow, and that is just going to kind of be the appetizer round, saturating the grounds and giving even another chance for flooding. So our teams are out in the field. We'll be breaking down exactly what the impacts will be community by community for you.
It's totally normal to have constipation with belly pain, straining, and bloating again and again.
No way.
More exercise, more water, and more fiber is the only way to manage it.
Is it?
Maybe you think it's occasional constipation.
Maybe it's not.
It could be a chronic medical condition called IBS-C, and time to say yes to Linzess. Linzess works differently than laxatives. It helps relieve belly pain and lets you have more frequent and complete bowel movements. Do not give Linzess to children less than 6, and it should not be given to children 6 to less than 18. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Change your thinking to IBS-C. If your constipation and belly pain keeps coming back, tell your doctor and say yes to Linzess.
And Doug.
You know, Limu, after all these years, it's the ones that got away that haunt me the most. Because you're not like everybody else. That's why Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance. So you only pay for what you need. What?
Oh, I said.
Oh, this is my floor.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
We got a Subaru to give him some adventure, to reconnect and be together. And once we did that, we realized his greatest adventure is just beginning.
Welcome to the most adventurous Outback ever. The all-new 2020 Subaru Outback. Go where love takes you.
Get 0% APR financing for 63 months on select models during the Subaru A Lot to Love event.
Whether holding down the fort or bouncing back to school, childhood is always in session. So keep feeding us right with Sun-Made snacks. Just like when you were a kid. Delicious, made with whole fruit. Sun-Made.
When it's especially important to keep skin clean, keep reaching for Cetaphil. Recommended by dermatologists. Awarded by Allure. And most of all, loved by skin. Cetaphil, the cleanser sensitive skin loves.
What do? Your husband or father was just diagnosed with lung cancer after being exposed to asbestos while on the job. You've got your hands full with his medical treatments. People are telling you to find an attorney, but there's so little time.
Let me help. Just call Whites in Luxembourg. They've successfully handled thousands of asbestos cases and will put your mind at ease. They have achieved the highest verdicts for New York lung cancer and mesothelioma victims. Their clients benefit from the $30 billion in trust funds for victims, even for smokers. Your husband's case will have the support of one of the largest firms of its kind, and they know how to win. So many New Yorkers have made the right choice, so can you. Do what's best for your loved ones. Call Whites in Luxembourg today or visit asbestosLawyerNYC.com.
Call 800-303-9100. That's 800-303-9100.
Unbelievable, this is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
An all-new season of Weather Gone Viral, Sunday night on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 83 degrees under clear skies. Tonight, mainly clear, low 78. Winds west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tuesday, thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. A few storms may be severe. High 94. Chance of rain 40%. Tuesday night, clear, low 70. Winds northwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Season doesn't stop for a pandemic, and neither do we.
Be ready for impacts well beyond the center of the hurricane.
Don't let COVID-19 take your eye off the tropics. This year's threat is more complex and dangerous than ever before.
Remain vigilant, pay close attention to the Weather Channel.
No one can cover this historic hurricane season better than the Weather Channel. Get the information you need to stay safe every day. Storm safety in a pandemic, all season long, right here on the Weather Channel.
I'm meteorologist Julie Martin. Right now, nearly 10 million under tropical alerts in the U.S. That includes Houston to Beaumont, Texas, over to Lake Charles and Lafayette, Louisiana. Power outages are likely in Louisiana tonight. Crews are staging in Plaquemines Parish. A state of emergency in effect for Louisiana tonight, and evacuations ordered for the coastal parishes. And in New Orleans, work crews spent the day closing floodgates. In all, 689 gates are being monitored. Nearly 400 were closed today. Crews have also been pumping down canals. And live in New Orleans tonight, the governor saying tomorrow, well, it's just the last day for the state to prepare for Laura. He wants everyone to take advantage of it. Storm surge watch remains in effect there tonight. Meanwhile, Laura bringing squalls, packing heavy rain and wind to parts of South Florida. This was a scene in Fort Myers a few hours ago. No tropical watches or warnings here, but farther south in the Keys, we still have those tropical storm alerts up. We're going to check with Mike Seidel coming up at 50 past the hour. And this is the type of weather Laura brought to Jamaica. Roads completely underwater, drivers getting stuck, winds gusting over 70 miles an hour. Well, here's what we know right now about Tropical Storm Laura. Motiva began shutting down the nation's largest crude oil refinery today in Port Arthur, Texas. Hurricane Harvey's 5 feet of rain in 2017 closed the refinery for 2 weeks. Galveston, Texas has issued a voluntary evacuation order. And Texas A&M at Galveston has ordered mandatory evacuations for tomorrow. In Louisiana, Jefferson Parish has delayed school openings until August 31st. So a lot of uncertainty still with Laura, where exactly that landfall may happen. But what we do know, Dr. Knabb, is the fact that it appears that there's nothing stopping it, nothing in its way at this point.
No, Julie, it's got a couple days over the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico and with weak wind shear, and it looks pretty healthy, unfortunately, for a tropical storm that's been tangling with the landmass of Cuba. So we have every expectation that this is going to strengthen all the way up until the time of landfall. So as you think about what does this mean to me, what do I do about it, a couple things I want you to know. Number one is we can't guarantee that the center of circulation is going to stay within this cone, and it could get even stronger than the exact forecast. We should be planning for a major hurricane, Category 3 or stronger, coming ashore in the Wednesday evening time frame, and the weather going downhill before that during the day on Wednesday. Now, this is if the exact forecast turns out the way the track, the intensity, the size are currently laid out. And if that's the case, then it would be Wednesday morning that the tropical storm conditions would start arriving in southeast Louisiana potentially, Wednesday evening in southeast Texas, during the day in south central Louisiana. But if it speeds up or the wind field expands, then it could be even very early Wednesday morning or late Tuesday night that the conditions go downhill in south central Louisiana, for example. So I would use Tuesday as my preparation day, and then go to bed Tuesday night in your safe place for the storm, and having evacuated and having got all your supplies. Now, if you want to know what you need to make sure you have supplies-wise, get your camera out, take a picture of the screen here as I go through this important list of key supplies you want to have, and there's still time to get them if you didn't have the chance or the ability to do the shopping ahead of time. You want to get a gallon of water per person per day for 7 days. That's because you could be on your own for a length of time. Authorities can't come, or utilities might be out. You want that life-saving water for everybody in your family. Non-perishable food, including for the babies and for the pets. And fill those prescriptions before the storm, because if the power goes out, the pharmacies might not be operating. You might not be able to fill prescriptions. And for some of us, those prescriptions are very, very important, maybe even life-sustaining, and get the over-the-counter medications as well. Get cash from the ATM before the storm, because when the power goes out, the credit cards, the contactless payments, all the electronic ways we pay might not work. Cash will be king. You want to stock up on your first aid kit, battery-powered radios, battery-powered LED lights because they burn nice and cool and they don't take up a lot of battery power. Don't use candles. It's too easy to leave them unattended and cause fires. And then I highly recommend, if you can get them, solar or battery-powered USB chargers. Now, this goes for everybody, coastal or inland, to deal with a power outage in a damaged area and fend for yourself. But for those of you in coastal regions that are under this storm surge watch, and this is not just Gulf Front property. This risk goes inland to places like Lake Charles and Lafayette. You want to plan for evacuation. Don't just do it at the last minute when authorities say go. Now, when they say go, you need to leave. But it's so much better if you plan ahead of time. And this could be a very high-end storm surge event. The type of storm surge we saw in Rita, in some spots possible in this particular event. Now, What do you want to do to get ready for evacuation? You got to know your evacuation zone, decide on your destination now, and ideally choose a friend to stay with who's not very far away. And if you are not in an evacuation zone, why don't you be an evacuation destination for someone who is? Now, if you can't watch us on television or you have to evacuate, you can also get the latest track and up-to-the-minute forecast from the Weather Channel now on Sirius XM Channel 721. We'll be live streaming through noon Eastern Time on Thursday, keeping you safe.
When you have depression, it can plunge you into deep, dark lows and can leave you feeling extremely sad and disinterested. Overwhelmed by bipolar depression? Ask about Vraylar. Not all types of depression should be treated the same. Vraylar effectively helps relieve all symptoms of bipolar depression with just one pill once a day. Elderly patients with dementia-related psychosis have an increased risk of death or stroke. Call your doctor about unusual changes in behavior or suicidal thoughts. Antidepressants can increase these in children and young adults. Report fever, stiff muscles, or confusion, which may mean a life-threatening reaction, or uncontrollable muscle movements, which may be permanent. Side effects may not appear for several weeks. Metabolic changes may occur. Nausea, restlessness, and movement dysfunction are common side effects. When bipolar depression overwhelms, ask how Vraylar can help.
Can't wait to tell everyone about AT&T's big 5G news.
AT&T has nationwide 5G?
Yep.
And that's faster?
Faster, yeah.
But is it reliable?
Uh-huh, and secure.
You should consider making a big deal about it.
Bigger?
I said bigger.
Oh, bigger deal, bigger than what I'm doing.
It's not complicated. A 5G network needs a 5G device. Now everyone, including existing customers, can get a free Samsung Galaxy Note 20 after trade-in.
Find your keys. Find your get up and go. Find pants that aren't sweats. Find your friends. Find your sense of wonder. Find the world is new again. At Chevy, we'd like to take you there. Now, during the Chevy Open Road Sales Event, get up to 15% of MSRP cash back on select 2020 models. That's over $5,700 cash back on this Equinox. It's time to find new roads again.
Well, here's to first dates. You look amazing.
And you look amazingly comfortable.
When your V-neck looks more like a U-neck, that's when you know it's half washed. Try Downy Fabric Conditioner. Unlike detergent alone, Downy helps prevent stretching by conditioning and smoothing fibers. So clothes look newer, longer. Downy, and it's done.
Is that net carbs or total? Not enough fiber. Chocolate would be good.
Snacking should be sweet and simple. The delicious taste of Glucerna gives you the sweetness you crave while helping you manage your blood sugar with nutrients to help support immune health.
DiGiorno has 7 delicious crusts, and your family food critics will rave. Rising crust is fresh baked deliciousness. Stuffed crust is literally mouth-watering. There's a 5-star pizza for everyone in your family to love. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
Water?
Water tastes like water, so we fixed it. Mio.
These days, we need each other more than ever. That's why AARP created Community Connections, an online tool to find or create a mutual aid group, get help, or help those in need. Stay connected with AARP.
John Tyson's motto was, "When better chickens are hatched, we will hatch them." It's why all of the Tyson chicken that bears his name is raised with no antibiotics ever. Every nugget, strip, and drumstick. Keep it real. Keep it Tyson.
Some new video for you today. The scene in Panama City Beach as the outer bands from Marco whipped up some wave action. It was a dangerous beach day, a bigger surf zone, rip current risk out there, and that risk continues. So even as the weather clears briefly between our storms, the rip currents will still be there. I don't see that trend going away anytime soon with Laura waiting in the wings, which will just, pile up that water near the beach line again, and then eventually it has to leave. And with that piling up of the water, look at this. some street flooding. That was a combination, I think, of a little bit of a high tide along with heavy rain at the time, so there was nowhere for that rainfall to go. And you wound up with some flooding and cars trying to trudge their way on through. And this was, remember, a disorganized, weakening tropical storm. And we've got a significantly better organized storm still ahead in Laura. That's why our live coverage continues around the clock on the Weather Channel here. The center of Marco moved ashore earlier. It's fizzling out. Now a depression waiting in the wings is Laura, expected to strengthen over the next couple of days before heading towards the Gulf Coast again. The storm already brought gusty winds and torrential downpours to parts of Florida. The Keys had 70-mile-per-hour gusts or so. At Key West, some tree damage reported there. Isolated, but damage nonetheless from a storm that was hundreds of miles away. Again, gives you the feeling of what's still to come. Let's talk a little bit about Marco. Remember, Marco now a depression. This was at landfall, and look, all the rain was out here. The depression is now moving basically just inland of the coast of Louisiana, and yet still 2.5 feet of storm surge flooding, water above normally dry ground in Shell Beach. So not a non-impact event. There is still a core of rain, tropical rain, and some thunderstorms coming in towards Pensacola, towards kind of the bend here, and a small sliver of tornado watch in that exact area near Panama City, and then back approaching Crestview in the I-10 corridor, an outside chance of a spin-up tornado. Not seeing any sign of that imminently, but we are watching those storms that are just off the coast to see if any water spouts can make it on land. There's still going to be a low spinning, so some added risk for storms tomorrow, and by Wednesday, not only do we have that one low leaving, we're really going to be turning our attention to Laura, which will then also ramp up the severe weather threat. So let's talk a little bit more about that. The bigger risk by far is Tropical Storm Laura could really become a hurricane at any point now that it's over the waters of the Gulf. Expected to make landfall a little bit later on this week. Not, can't rule out the Houston-Galveston area. Impacts could be all the way over towards southeast Louisiana again. So going over some of the same communities that just were, under alerts because of Marco. And so that adds to the communication challenges. I want to bring in Dr. Nab, because Dr. Nab, people are like, okay, we're out of the alerts from one, and now we're getting put under alerts from the next.
And, not every watch or warning is created equal, even if they have the same kind of name. We have a different level of storm surge watch, for example, for Laura than we did for Marco. The latest advisory from the Hurricane Center shows 65-mile-an-hour winds. That's up from 5 p.m., and it is going to go up from here because it's about to completely leave western Cuba, moving west-northwest at 20 miles an hour, getting much more organization to the thunderstorm activity, especially over the water areas. But without land in the way, it's just a matter of, can it tap into the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, and will the atmosphere around it be conducive for it to strengthen? We think the answer to that is yes. The southwesterly shear that tore Marco apart is not going to be affecting Laura at all. We have big upper-level high pressure dominating the area over and around Laura. That's a lack of wind shear to tear it apart, and it allows the eventual hurricane to breathe and strengthen, and that is what the Hurricane Center is calling for. It brings it near the Cat 2-3 threshold around the time of landfall late on Wednesday. Could be a little weaker than that, could be stronger than that, but we need to be thinking about getting ready for a major hurricane coming ashore in the northwestern Gulf, and it could even be stronger than forecast. The center cannot be guaranteed to stay within the cone when you've got your reliable European model alternative scenarios that have some solutions inside the cone and some outside of the cone. Hopefully, we're going to get a little more clarity on the models getting in better agreement on track. One way that we're trying to do that is the NOAA G4 jet is doing this lawnmower pattern around the Gulf of Mexico, part of the Atlantic. It's flying in the environment around the tropical storm, dropping these dropsons. Those get into the models, and those models are cranking on that data right now. And that data will be output and available to the Hurricane Center for their 5 a.m. advisory. So hopefully things will come into better agreement for that advisory. But we know we're going to have a big-time storm surge event, so you need to be evacuating if told to by local officials. We've got a team of meteorologists spread out across the Gulf to keep you updated on Laura.
The fighting spirit is one we all share. For Eduardo Perez, it drove him to thrive in his search for a better life. Immigrating from Guatemala at 18, he found work as a dishwasher, a line cook, sous chef, and eventually fought to the top of one of the most challenging professions in the world, proving that there is no challenge that can hold back a fighting spirit. Since 1925, we've proved that it doesn't matter where you come from, it matters what you're made of. Modelo, brewed for those with a fighting spirit.
This summer, we've all got miles to make up. Miles to the job site, to the campsite, and anything else we set our sights on. Miles back to those who can make this summer mean more than ever. We can help you get the most out of those miles during the Ram Summer Clearance Event.
Right now, get 0% financing for 72 months on the 2020 Ram 1500. Go to ram.com to shop and buy today.
All right, I brought in Ensure Max Protein to give you the protein you need with less of the sugar you don't. I'll take that.
30 grams of protein and 1 gram of sugar. Ensure Max Protein with nutrients to support immune health.
DiGiorno has 7 delicious crusts, and your family food critics will rave. Rising Crust is fresh baked deliciousness. Stuffed Crust is literally mouth-watering. There's a 5-star pizza for everyone in your family to love. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
We know to wash our hands. Here's a reminder from Cetaphil to wash your face, too. Dermatologist recommended Cetaphil washes away germs in 20 seconds and leaves skin moisturized and healthy. Show your sensitive skin some love with Cetaphil.
Oh, hello. Did you know that Coffee Mate is triple churn and 2 times richer than milk for 1 perfect cup of coffee? How do I know so much about Coffee Mate? I've had a cup or 200. Coffee Mate. Coffee's perfect mate.
Max. No. Max! Max! Max!
Dogs don't know what's good for them. Luckily, you do. Greenie's Dental Treats.
Water?
Water tastes like water, so we fixed it. Mio.
On the road again.
Book 2 separate qualifying stays and earn a free night. The open road is open again, and wherever you're headed, Choice Hotels is there. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
When you've got auto glass damage, Safe Light can come to you.
And you'll get a text when we're on our way. Just leave your keys on the dash, and we'll replace your windshield with safe, no-contact service.
Schedule at safelight.com.
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace.
It's a beautiful night here in Houston. It's hot. It's summertime coming after a beautiful day. Tomorrow, similar. Might be a few showers, but what's not going to be similar tomorrow, Tuesday, is going to be the fact that we're going to know a lot more. We're going to know if we can continue to make plans for the weekend, or here in Houston, if we have to get ready for a major storm coming into the city. I mean, it's possible it'll be business as usual this weekend. It's also possible here in Houston that the power could still be out from a storm that could be a strong storm with major impacts, flash flooding, very strong winds that will potentially impact Houston Wednesday going into Thursday. But at this point, it's this or this. We just don't know yet, because Houston is on the edge, like a lot of cities that are on the edge of the cone and the edge of our seats, trying to figure out what Laura ultimately will be and where it ultimately will go. But what we do feel pretty good about is the fact that it is heading to the Gulf Coast. Texas and Louisiana does look like the starting point for this storm to move on shore. But it's not going to be the end. It's going to stay pretty strong going up either into Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and then eventually, what I think is amazing, a strong rain producer and wind producer going all the way over to the mid-Atlantic.
This is going to be an inland event for sure, a totally different beast from Marco. Laura is a stronger storm, a better organized storm with a better environment to continue strengthening all the way to landfall, as opposed to weakening once it gets near people. This is a totally different beast, so please don't assume that just because you are already under, say, a storm surge watch from earlier in the week, that the one from Laura is going to be as non-impactful as the one you just went through. Let's talk about Laura for a sec. Here's with the latest advisory as of 11 o'clock. 65-mile-per-hour winds. The center is exiting the coast of Cuba. That's it for land interaction. So there's no land now that will slow down the intensification process. The upper level wind flow is very favorable for more strengthening, and we're starting to see the winds correspond to that, at least in that, wind field as seen by the modeling and seen by the satellite imagery kind of combining to give us this product. Havana gusting to 25, Key West gusting to the mid-30s, much stronger earlier as the storm made its closest approach, which was still pretty far away. Taking not only the main run of a model, but all the different versions of the models, and combining that with both the European and the US GFS, we can give you a heat map, where the most likely spot for the center to go will be. Notice there is still a risk out of that cone that I showed you, including all the way through Galveston to Houston. Medium to high chances of direct impacts there. Green does not mean no chance on this map. Low is not zero. So please, there is still a lot of wiggle room for the exact path of the center of our storm. Again, there's also wiggle room with how strong it'll be. Current forecast is 110. Some of the models ramp it up significantly more than that. So the alerts, hurricane watches are up, stopping just shy of getting all the way to Houston. We'll see if that changes by, say, the 5 a.m. advisory time. Lake Charles in it, Lafayette, Louisiana, also in the hurricane watch. Surrounding that, tropical storm watches. That does include Houston, gets all the way to Grand Isle and a curl well inland. And then the water rise. Water rise is going to be a huge component here. Storm surge watches are up. Again, many of you were under storm surge watches from Marco. Not the same beast. Marco had maybe 3 to 5 feet potential for the biggest risk. Out ahead of the storm by days, 7 to 11 feet is on our map already. That is a huge number of for water rise, okay? And the risk is that could go up if either the storm winds go up or if their confidence goes up for a specific part of the landfall path. Those numbers could be higher. So again, community by community, there are forecasts for that amount of water rise. Far away from the center right now off Lake Pontchartrain, look, there's 3 to 6 feet, maybe a little bit more than that, of water rise. You go near where the center will be, that red color is 9 feet plus, and well inland too, going up the river all the way north of Lake Charles. Significant flooding there. So Dr. Knabb, that is a huge concern and something that we've seen before with hurricanes and tropical systems that took very similar paths to what Laura is doing right now.
Boy, if I pick any point on that map you just showed, Mark, it's very concerning what the reasonable worst-case scenario is. Some significant life-threatening storm surge flooding. And that part of the country, Southeast Texas, Southwest Louisiana, been struck many times in recent years by the likes of Rita and Ike and Isaac and Barry. And they all had a wind component, but they all had a very significant water component. And for the most part, none of them behaved themselves by following the center of the cone and being exactly the intensity as forecast 2 days ahead of time. So let's use those as past learning tools to help us understand what could happen with Laura. Now, going back to the track for Laura, you might have the tendency to look at this and go, oh, well, this is going to come ashore exactly where Rita did at about that Cat 3 intensity of 115 miles an hour, what Rita did, and this is going to turn out exactly like Rita. Now, we can learn a lot from Rita and realize that that's the kind of storm surge, that's the kind of event that we could have for places like Southwest Louisiana, but don't be surprised if the center of circulation doesn't stay right down the middle of the cone, and maybe it doesn't even stay within the cone. And don't be surprised if the intensity ends up being different than forecast here. We're still a couple days out, and still concerning that the Euro models are all over the place, inside and outside of the cone. But when you look back at a system like Rita, you realize what a system right at that Cat 2-3 threshold can do, making landfall here. So it got there a different way than Laura will. Laura will be on the upswing. Rita was weakening, but a Cat 3 can produce devastating storm surge. And then when you look at what Ike did in 2008, again, coming at it from a different way, if it ends up farther west, comes ashore on Galveston Island as a Cat 2 near the Cat 3 threshold, that could be a very devastating blow as well. Now, we have a team of meteorologists spread out across the Gulf and places inland to bring you the latest as Laura gets closer. Live team coverage continues around the clock right here on the Weather Channel. So important to stay with us as those forecasts might change.
A lung cancer diagnosis can leave you holding your breath. But Bristol-Myers Squibb is working to change things by researching new kinds of medicines that could help you live longer, including options that are chemo-free, because we're committed to bringing new hope into lung cancer care. Learn about our lung cancer research at lungcancerresearch.com.
Jumbo Snacks! Jumbo Tiger Paw Jumbo Crunch! Jumbo Fruit Loops Jumbo Flavor! Unleash never before seen Jumbo Snacks! Jumbo fun anytime! It's Jumbo! It's for snacking! It's Jumbo Snacks!
With Domino's $5.99 mix and match deal, you can feed a family of 4 for about $3 per person. So we asked one of our families to help us make this commercial about that deal. Safely feed a family of 4 for about $3 per person with the $5.99 mix and match deal.
It's totally normal to have constipation with belly pain, straining, and bloating again and again.
No way.
More exercise, more water, and more fiber is the only way to manage it.
Is it?
Maybe you think it's occasional constipation.
Maybe it's not.
It could be a chronic medical condition called IBS-C, and time to say yes to Linzess. Linzess works differently than laxatives. It helps relieve belly pain and lets you have more frequent and complete bowel movements. Do not give Linzess to children less than 6, and it should not be given to children 6 to less than 18. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Change your thinking to IBS-C. If your constipation and belly pain keeps coming back, tell your doctor and say yes to Linzess.
Spectrum Mobile is now the fastest growing mobile provider in the nation, growing faster than Verizon and AT&T, and even growing faster than T-Mobile. It's easy to see why. Spectrum delivers the fastest overall speeds and is the most reliable mobile service coast to coast. There are no contracts, added taxes, or fees. Switch and you could save up to 40% and see why Spectrum Mobile is the fastest growing mobile provider. Learn more at spectrummobile.com.
Need a ride to or from the airport? It's a fact. Carmel airport prices are the best in the tri-state area. Don't believe us? Compare before you buy, then book Carmel. You can download the Carmel app or book online to earn points, miles, and save big everywhere you go. No rideshare or taxi has the benefits we offer. So what are you waiting for? 3 easy ways to book Carmel: on the app, online, or call 666-6666.
Unbelievable, this is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
An all-new season of Weather Gone Viral, Sunday night on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 83 degrees under clear skies. Tonight, mainly clear, low 78. Winds west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tuesday, thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. A few storms may be severe. High 94. Chance of rain 40%. Tuesday night, clear, low 70. Winds northwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Although we're about 200 miles due north of the center of Tropical Storm Laura, the winds are frisky tonight here in the Keys and here in Key West, running at about 25 to 30 miles an hour and gusting over 40. Look at the palm trees getting rustled by the wind, but that's nothing. Let me take you back to this afternoon, about 15 after 3 here in Key West. and the squall came rolling, and we saw it on radar, and boy, it really came through with a lot of ferocity. The wind gusted at the nearby National Weather Service office to 69 miles an hour. In fact, they lost part of their beloved umbrella tree. Didn't get a lot of rain, 0.08 of an inch at the nearby Key West airport, and it lasted about 15 or 20 minutes. But since then, we've had this kind of wind. Now, overnight, we still have the coastal flood watch. Water is going to be running a little higher, about 1 foot to 1.5 feet. Next high tide here is about 3:15 in the morning. And tomorrow, as Laura pulls away, well away from the Keys, the winds are still going to be gusting up over 30 miles an hour. So you're going to have to wait until Wednesday to get these kayaks back in the Gulf of Mexico. So once again, here in the Keys, they missed Isaias, just a basic brush by here in the middle and lower Keys from Laura. Well, we've got a long way to go, and we've got a long way to go with Laura, as it's expected to landfall as a hurricane in just a couple of days.
Well, the hurricane hunters are out in force, getting new data on Tropical Storm Laura. This is video from the center of the storm from the NOAA P3 Orion, known as Miss Piggy. This is a beautiful shot, but wow, it belies the fact that flying into tropical storms is one of the bumpiest rides these folks ever take. It's even bumpier than many hurricanes. But that's not the only aircraft flying into the storm. All three types of Hurricane Hunter planes, from the P3 you see here, to the Air Force C-130s, to the NOAA Gulfstream G4 jet. They're all flying missions into and around Laura this evening. Got the whole armada out there, and how important is it that these brave women and men fly into and around these storms to give us data to get the forecast off to a good start, to monitor the storm in ways that we can't with satellite, and to get data into the models to make a better forecast. So this is our starting point, right? And when you've got something that's tangled with land and is disorganized on satellite, very important to have the aircraft in there. And that's one of the reasons why we know it's at 65 miles an hour, and the hurricane hunters will be going in and out of the center here as it departs Cuba to monitor how fast it ramps up to a hurricane. Now, another big component of the aircraft data is getting data into the models to get them into better agreement to make a more accurate track forecast. And boy, do we need those data, because these European model alternative track scenarios, the ensemble members, are still spread out pretty widely. I mean, there's not much chance of it going over New Orleans, but could go over Houston, could go west of Houston if these model tracks represent the reasonable collection of scenarios. So what's happening this evening is the NOAA G4 jet that's in the blue line that's doing the lawnmower pattern over the Gulf of Mexico and flying over part of the western Atlantic. It's flying in the environment around the tropical storm, dropping parachute-borne dropsons. Those go into the computer forecast models that have been running over the last few hours. And when those model runs are done, then those tracks will be available to the Hurricane Center forecasters to put together their 5 a.m. advisory. And we really hope that in the next few hours, all these model tracks get into better agreement one way or another, because we want the forecast to be accurate. Not wishing that it shifts one way or another relative to any of you. We just want agreement so we can make an accurate forecast, and that jet data will hopefully help out with that. Now, the jet doesn't go into the storm, it goes around. The turboprop planes, one of them being the Air Force Hurricane Hunters, flies into the storm. And this took off from Charleston because they deployed away from Mississippi because of Marco and then the threat of Laura. So they've been flying around just west of Cuba, and they haven't found hurricane force winds yet, but give it time. They're going to be monitoring this continuously until this comes ashore in a couple of days. Also had the NOAA P3. It has gone home, landed back in Lakeland. Same new base in Lakeland, the P3s, as the G4 jet. So we really are going to benefit tremendously from these data. And again, so two major roles of the aircraft data over the next several hours: to monitor the intensity of Laura as it gets over the Gulf of Mexico, see how fast it ramps up, and to try to get this track forecast to be even more confident when we get to 5 a.m., Mark.
And gosh, you know, we've seen so many wiggles recently because of that. Maybe that upper air data really coming into play for Marco. The big shift happened right after one of those flights. So we know that data is so crucial. The risk for this forecast is that the wind speeds continue to increase, and it's not just 110. at landfall. What does that do to the impacts at the coastline if you ramp up that wind speed farther?
Well, you have to account for what that does to things like storm surge, and maybe it increases the number of people that might need to be evacuated tomorrow. Now, the emergency managers are already taking into account the fact that it could get stronger than the exact forecasts that they've been seeing all day today. The storm surge products from the Hurricane Center, the briefings from the Hurricane Center take that into account. But if it rapidly intensifies even more than shown here, there might be more evacuations called during the day on Tuesday. So get ready to respond to changes over the next day and a half.
Gosh, it just leaves so little time to get ready, because if you're told to leave, your house has to be ready for you to be not there, right? Not still getting things ready. It has to be ready before you get out of there. I think
find out your zone tonight.
Yeah, a lot of people rushing around tomorrow. Stay with us. We'll bring you all the latest information right here.
You know, there's just nothing better than a plate of Mama's famous pasta. She doesn't let anybody in there when she's cooking. Her recipes, top secret. When I tell you, huh? Just like when I was a kid.
Michelina's. Let Mama feed you.
Find your keys. Find your get up and go. Find pants that aren't sweats. Find your friends. Find your sense of wonder. Find the world is new again. At Chevy, we'd like to take you there. Now during the Chevy Open Road Sales Event, get up to 15% of MSRP cash back on select 2020 models. That's over $5,700 cash back on this Equinox. It's time to find new roads again.
It's about the humans. These humans, those humans, Groovin and Golden. It's about getting more than health insurance and a partner who listens and acts. Humana calls it human care. It's talking to a doctor from your couch or helping you find a cheaper prescription before you ask. It's helping you fix the rugs so you don't fall and keeping you social, online or off. It's getting to know you so you can be your healthiest. That's our superpower. That's human care from Humana.
And Doug.
You know, Limu, after all these years, it's the ones that got away that haunt me the most. Because you're not like everybody else. That's why Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance. So you only pay for what you need. What? Oh, I said.
Oh, this is my floor.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
We got a Subaru to give him some adventure, to reconnect and be together. And once we did that, we realized his greatest adventure is just beginning.
Welcome to the most adventurous Outback ever. The all-new 2020 Subaru Outback. Go where love takes you.
Get 0% APR financing for 63 months on select models during the Subaru A Lot to Love event.
How do you make a Pinot Noir taste like no other? Start with grapes from 3 California regions. Push flavor in new directions. And put a bear on the label. Made like no other for a taste like no other. Mayomi. Flavor forward.
When it's especially important to keep skin clean, keep reaching for Cetaphil. Recommended by dermatologists. Awarded by Allure. And most of all, loved by skin. Cetaphil, the cleanser sensitive skin loves.
As Marco made landfall along the Louisiana coast and continues to spin down, we're now shifting our focus to Laura. Laura could be a major hurricane, and this is going to be coming towards the Gulf Coast in about 48 hours from now. Chris.
I'm meteorologist Chris Warren in Houston, Texas, where Houston on the edge. What that could or could not mean for the coming days as it relates to Laura coming up.
Some nasty squalls rolled through parts of the Florida Keys today. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel here in Key West. Coming up, we'll show you one of those and what it looked like out here on this beach.
Specialist Mark Elliott, hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb is here with me tonight as well, pouring over that new data coming in on Laura. And Dr. Knabb, before we get to the latest from Marco, there is a lot of data coming in from Marco. Hurricane hunters have been in the storm. Anything grabbing your attention this hour?
Well, I've spent most of the evening worrying about how strong might Laura become, and every hour that goes by, more information comes in that gives us great concern that we got to be dealing with a major hurricane at landfall, Mark.
Yeah, gosh, there's really nothing to slow that one down. Totally different beast from what Marco was and is. So quickly, if you're watching along wanting to find out, well, what happened to storm number 1? Came in, made landfall at the mouth of the Mississippi, continues to spin out, but that was a center that had nothing with it. Almost, right? Nothing at all. All the action was back here, and a lot of that action still is back there. And yet, with a disorganized storm, there was some decent storm surge. These are current values. Currently, 2.5 feet in Shell Beach. That's with a center that had no storms with it at all and was basically devoid of any action whatsoever. There is still some rain. Remember, the center's now over here, moving through southern Louisiana. Depression now, no longer a tropical storm. Still, some thunderstorms coming in. We've lost really a lot of that shear. We've lost a chance for significant tornado threats. So basically, Marco is coming to a close, which is good because we have to turn our attention to Laura. Laura is going to be the bigger of the two by far. So I want to bring back hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb. Gosh, Dr. Knabb, this is going to be a significant threat to the Gulf Coast with all modes of those threats going, right? The rain, the wind, the storm surge.
And it's going to go way inland as well. You know, when I think of what happens when a major hurricane comes ashore, it doesn't just go poof at the coastline and go away. It is going to bring a lot of conditions to a lot of places. And now Houston, Galveston, and really anywhere along the Gulf Coast, all the way over to the Florida Panhandle, time is going to be running out on Tuesday to prepare, and this storm will make landfall somewhere on the Gulf Coast. That we're sure of. But how strong it will be is the big question, and exactly where the center of circulation will make landfall is still up for question. Even 2 days out, we don't know exactly how that track is going to play out. So if you haven't seen the latest advisory from the Hurricane Center, it's not a hurricane yet, but it's darn close. And it really could become a hurricane any time in the overnight period. Hurricane hunters will be out there monitoring it continuously as it departs Cuba and over the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. It's still moving pretty quickly, so it's going to be leaving Cuba fast. It will be slowing down and making a right-hand turn, however. And between now and a couple days from now, when it makes landfall, the center does, the atmosphere will be very conducive to strengthening. The Gulf waters are plenty warm, warmer than average for this time of year, but the upper levels in the atmosphere, big upper level high pressure, very different than the atmosphere that had the southwesterly shear that ripped Marco apart. That's not going to be affecting Laura. This is going to be so different from Marco. Don't even compare the two. They're not the same beasts at all. Marco is going to be a distant memory for most of you compared to what Laura is going to do at the coast and inland with wind and water. We have to be focusing on the fact that we should expect and plan for a major hurricane making landfall. We don't know for sure that it will get to Cat 3 before landfall, but those chances keep going up. And right now, the Hurricane Center's forecast is right at that threshold, and it could end up being stronger than this. So we got to be thinking major hurricane coming ashore in a couple of days with the weather going downhill, maybe even early on Wednesday. So tonight and tomorrow, Tuesday, is prep day, and then we have to worry about all the inland effects. Have to continue to emphasize that we cannot yet guarantee that the center of circulation will stay within the cone. We rarely can do that, but we certainly can't do it when you have a number of European model ensembles from a reliable modeling system that give you a reasonable depiction of what the possible scenarios are for track. So many of them are inside but also outside the cone. Now, none of them go over New Orleans, but a lot of them go over Houston and places west, and that puts a lot of you outside the cone still at risk. And even if the center stays within the cone, we know hurricanes are not just a point on the map. The effects could extend well away from the center. Now, the tropical storm conditions could start arriving in southeast Louisiana if they get there on Wednesday morning. The Louisiana-Texas border around sunset on Wednesday, and that's if the forecast is exactly correct. I would get ready by the time you go to bed tomorrow night so that whatever happens on Wednesday, as things deteriorate, you're already in your safe place with all your preparations done and your supplies in hand. Hurricane watch still is east of Houston over through central Louisiana, goes into Lake Charles and Lafayette. So this will not just be a Gulf front wind event. And look how far inland the tropical storm watches go. They don't include New Orleans, but they do include Houston. You got to pay attention in Houston. Don't tune out. Things could change on Tuesday. That could change how you need to prepare as Tuesday moves along. Very concerned about life-threatening storm surge. There's a storm surge watch that goes from the Freeport area in Texas all the way around to portions of the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. But look how far inland the storm surge watch goes. That means we could have life-threatening saltwater flooding from the Gulf of Mexico going miles inland in some of these areas. Maybe not everybody. This is where it's possible to get life-threatening storm surge 3 feet above ground or more. We could have a lot more than that in the red zone here. Somewhere in that area could get 7 to 11 feet above normally dry ground, and that number might even go up when we get more confident of where the core is going to come ashore. And then, by the way, water is going to be a problem inland, Mark, and we could have a significant inland flood event. When you think of the likes of what Barry did last year as a Cat 1, you bring a Cat 3 up through this area where it's already been wet. Big time, life-threatening, potentially, flood problems inland.
Yeah, so water is going to be one of the biggest issues here, whether it's rainfall flooding or storm surge flooding. And so that is part of the scenario here, Dr. Knabb, that we are still kind of following along. When it comes to the strength of the storm, everyone focuses on the wind threat because that changes the categories. But far and away, it's the water that makes people lose their lives, whether it's inland flooding or storm surge flooding. How do we kind of explain that now so that people can really kind of focus on that part of the storm that's still to come?
Well, it's the next couple of days where the category is most useful. When you've got a hurricane that is strengthening, it's a very useful device to communicate how strong we're talking. And it's helpful right now to be able to say this could be a Cat 3, could be a major hurricane. But doesn't matter how strong it ends up being exactly. We're going to have storm surge. We're going to have inland flooding. And it's going to be a coastal and inland event no matter what the strength at landfall.
Well, 7 to 11 feet and potentially more if this continues to ramp up. That is
scary.
That is a very scary thought. That's up to ceilings. That's up to ceilings. So if you hear evacuations in your area, listen to them. Be ready for them tomorrow because at some point tomorrow they may be issued. We're running out of time in that regard. It seems like, Dr. Knabb, we were talking about it ramping up for days with these, 2 cones and everything, and now it's here.
Yeah, and when you consider when will winds of tropical storm force start arriving, and that is on the coast of Louisiana sometime Wednesday, maybe even Wednesday morning. So that means tomorrow is evacuation day and preparation day in general.
It's easy to lose track of time right now. Everybody's stuck at home. Every day feels the same, but tomorrow is going to feel very different for those of you preparing.
At least we have that luxury of time.
Make sure you use it. The time's running short, but you still have some. Let's check in with meteorologist Chris Warren. He's in Houston, and that's a city that's certainly preparing for Laura as Laura is strengthening and moving closer. Chris.
The sun is down on Houston, and what was essentially a pretty normal day. Hot, of course, it's summertime, and humid here in Houston. But when the sun comes up tomorrow, we're hoping to know a lot more because Houston, where we are right now, just on the west side of downtown, Houston is on the east side of the cone, or just right there on the easternmost point of the cone, so really on the edge. And with our confidence in this storm coming on shore, possibly as a strong hurricane coming on shore sometime late Wednesday into Thursday, it's still possible that could happen here. However, being on the edge, it's also possible that it's not that bad here. So we have a lot to learn and not a lot of time to prepare and get ready. This is why having a plan in place is just so important that if you do get the call that it's time to go, or it's time to shut her up, or whatever hurricane preps you have to do, you're able to, and ready to do it, because frankly there's not a lot of time. So when the sun comes up here on Houston on Tuesday, Tuesday's the day. Tuesday's the day we're going to get a better idea of how strong it is, how strong it's going to be, and exactly where it is going to go. Where will Houston be on Tuesday by the end of the day into the cone. Is it a time to really kind of breathe a sigh of relief, or is it a time to essentially batten down the hatches? But what we do know for sure, time will tell.
So true, Chris. And one of the X factors here is how strong will Laura get? You know, when we look at the latest track and intensity forecast, we have a tendency to want to take it to the bank. Okay, that's what it's going to be. But we can't rely on the track or the intensity being exactly correct, and we need to be ready on Tuesday to adjust to changes in the forecast, because there are still some significant possibilities of this being different than the exact forecast. Now, it is notable and useful that the Hurricane Center's intensity forecast has been bumped up to 110 miles an hour on Wednesday evening, and that leaves room for a little more time to get to 115, a Cat 3, by the time we reach landfall. So it's pretty clear now we need to be planning for a Category 3, planning for a major hurricane, knowing that there could be some changes to that. Now, what are we looking for to see if it could intensify even more rapidly than forecast? Well, we look at the recent intensity trend. It has not lost its intensity over Cuba. In fact, it intensified a little bit during the evening. We're looking at the symmetry of the thunderstorms. It is starting to have that look, and looks like it's about to start organizing an inner core. And then the weak wind shear and the deep warm waters ahead over the Gulf of Mexico mean that we've got plenty of opportunity for this to rapidly strengthen. So, Mark, we already know Hurricane Center's forecasting it to be right near that Cat 2-3 threshold. We still have to plan for the possibility that it's even stronger than that over the next couple days.
Absolutely. Better to over-prepare than under-prepare in a case like this. And that includes many of you well inland as well, because this does not stop at the coastline. This is going to be an inland flood event. And even though we don't know exactly where that landfall point is going to be, there's really not that much wiggle room for where the inland impacts are going to go. High pressure off to the east, so the southeast is off the table for a direct turn back through the southeast. There's this approaching cold front, so we know it's not going to go all the way up through the Midwest, because this cold front's blasting south and east. So that'll take whatever's left from Laura at that point and start sending it eastbound. It will kind of stretch out along that front and really increase the amount of rain that's along that frontal boundary. Could mean a flood event in the mid-Atlantic, back through the Carolinas, certainly the lower Ohio Valley into the Tennessee Valley. Until that front clears you, you've got all this tropical moisture to work with. Let's look at some of the modeling to give you an idea. Now, the part of the storm where landfall takes place, all of this in Louisiana and Arkansas, that is highly track dependent. If the track were to shift closer to, say, the Houston area, this would move along with it. That said, the front part of the story that stretches out that tropical moisture over the next several days, all the way into the Appalachian chain, the Mid-Atlantic, the Tennessee Valley, that part of it is going to happen no matter where landfall takes place. So that is how the European model sees the heavy rainfall stretching out all the way into the upcoming weekend. The USGFS model, again, this part of the rainfall, very track dependent, lots of wiggle room here. Not as much wiggle room this way. There's actually a little bit more confidence that there will be this heavy rain along our front. So be prepared for some of that inland flooding, along with a severe weather threat. We know that whenever there's this landfalling tropical system, you get different spin, different shear. There's very often a tornado threat. We can take a look at one model, the European model, as it is approaching Louisiana-Texas border. Again, track dependent, there's wiggle room there. Don't focus on just that one point. But then that rainfall gets swept in along our front, kind of stretching out through Friday into Saturday, still a core of tropical rains going all the way in and through the mid-Atlantic. That will bring heavy rain and a severe weather threat. There is already a severe weather threat tonight, not connected to the tropics. Let's go into the lab with Julie for that.
There is, and we have actually a tornado warning in Wisconsin right now. This is for Columbia counties, and it does include Columbus, Fall River, and Wyocena. This is radar indicated, moving off to the south at around 30 miles per hour here. This goes until 11:30, so if you live in that zone, be aware, and in the surrounding areas where we have the severe thunderstorm warnings. That cold front, though, that's creating that potential radar indicated tornado is actually what's going to be our impetus for severe weather across the mid-Atlantic and across the Northeast come tomorrow. And we're talking about places like Washington, D.C., Baltimore, New York City, where this cold front is going to collide with some very humid air. In fact, some of our dew points here are up in the 70s in this region. So this cold front coming in, it's got ample energy to really spark those storms, particularly as we get into tomorrow afternoon. So a very significant severe weather threat here for millions of you in the Northeast. Stay with the Weather Channel. We're tracking that and, of course, Laura throughout the night.
Age is just a number, and mine's unlisted.
Try Boost High Protein with 20 grams of protein for muscle health versus only 16 grams in Ensure High Protein. And now enjoy Boost High Protein in new Cafe Mocha flavor.
That's a buffalo flatbread bullseye for my mouth to aim at. Oh, hiding, huh? The new grilled buffalo chicken papadilla. Tangy buffalo sauce, grilled chicken, and melty cheese for just $6. Papa John's.
At Bear Naked, soft-baked granola clusters are hand-picked by our very own Bear Naked granola bears. Honey, oats, nuts, and fruit. Satisfying enough for a bear, clean enough to be naked. Bear Naked granola. Feed your bear.
And Doug.
You know, Limu, after all these years, it's the ones that got away that haunt me the most. Because you're not like everybody else. That's why Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance. So you only pay for what you need.
What?
Oh, I said.
Oh, this is my floor.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
This summer, we've all got miles to make up. Miles to the job site, to the campsite, and anything else we set our sights on. Miles back to those who can make this summer mean more than ever. We can help you get the most out of those miles during the Ram Summer Clearance Event.
Right now, get 0% financing for 72 months on the 2020 Ram 1500. Go to ram.com to shop and buy today.
Well, here's to first dates. You look amazing.
And you look amazingly comfortable.
When your V-neck looks more like a U-neck, that's when you know it's half washed. Try Downy Fabric Conditioner. Unlike detergent alone, Downy helps prevent stretching by conditioning and smoothing fibers. So clothes look newer, longer. Downy, and it's done.
These days, we need each other more than ever. That's why AARP created Community Connections, an online tool to find or create a mutual aid group, get help, or help those in need. Stay connected with AARP.
Mama, Mama.
Why do I keep falling asleep during the day? What's making me so tired?
Why does it feel like I'm still dreaming when I wake up? What could be causing this?
Hey, Luke, wake up. You fell asleep again.
Why do I always fall asleep on the bus after school? Why am I so tired?
It turns out we're more than tired. We have symptoms of narcolepsy, like the uncontrollable urge to sleep during the day, sudden muscle weakness during laughter or emotions.
Dreamlike hallucinations, or feeling paralyzed when falling asleep or waking up.
Or waking up frequently during the night.
If you or your child has any of these symptoms, it's time to do something about it. I waited too long to take action, but you don't have to. Learn more at morethantired.com. Take the narcolepsy symptom screener now and find a sleep specialist to share your results. Visit morethantired.com today. Don't wait any longer to take action.
Unbelievable, this is real. When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
An all-new season of Weather Gone Viral, Sunday night on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 83 degrees under fair skies. Tonight, clear to partly cloudy, low 78. Winds west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tuesday, thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. A few storms may be severe. High 93. Chance of rain 50%. Tuesday night, a mostly clear sky. Low 70. Winds northwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Hurricane season doesn't stop for a pandemic, and neither do we.
Be ready for impacts well beyond the center of the hurricane.
Don't let COVID-19 take your eye off the tropics. This year's threat is more complex and dangerous than ever before.
Remain vigilant, pay close attention to the Weather Channel.
No one can cover this historic hurricane season better than the Weather Channel. Get the information you need to stay safe every day. Storm safety in a pandemic, all season long, right here on the Weather Channel.
I'm meteorologist Julie Martin. Right now, nearly 10 million under tropical alerts in the U.S. That includes Houston to Beaumont, Texas, over to Lake Charles and Lafayette, Louisiana. Well, power outages are likely in Louisiana, and tonight crews are staging in Plaquemines Parish. A state of emergency in effect for Louisiana tonight. Evacuations ordered for the coastal parishes. And in New Orleans, work crews spent today closing floodgates. In all, 689 gates are being monitored. Nearly 400 were closed today. Crews have also been pumping down canals. And live in New Orleans tonight, the governor saying tomorrow is the last day for the state to prepare for Laura and wants everyone to take advantage of it. A storm surge watch remains in effect tonight. Meanwhile, Laura bringing squalls, packing heavy rain and wind to parts of South Florida earlier. This was a scene in Fort Myers. No tropical watches or warnings here, but farther south in the Keys still have some tropical storm alerts up. We will check in with Mike Seidel at 50 past the hour. And this is the type of weather Laura brought to Jamaica. Roads completely underwater here, drivers getting stuck, winds gusting over 70 miles an hour. Well, here's what we know right now about Tropical Storm Laura. About 78 million people live in Laura's cone of uncertainty. All nursing homes and assisted living centers in Galveston, Texas are evacuating to San Antonio. The Louisiana National Guard has mobilized nearly 100 high water vehicles and 55 boats for rescue efforts. And Jefferson Parish has delayed school openings until August 31st in Louisiana. So one thing we do know is that Laura is starting to emerge in the Gulf of Mexico, expected to strengthen, Dr. Nab, and it's looking pretty scary at the moment in terms of its path and what we could be dealing with here within about 48 hours.
Yeah, and so, Julie, what do we do with that fear? I mean, it's a scary situation, no doubt about it, with the distinct possibility of having a major hurricane coming ashore in a couple of days. But we do have time to take action and get ready. And I want to highlight the fact that just because the center of circulation might take until late Wednesday or Wednesday night to come ashore, the weather will be going downhill before that. And that means that tonight and Tuesday is prep time because the winds of tropical storm force are expected to arrive in places like southeastern Louisiana Wednesday morning, during the day in south central Louisiana, and by dinner time in southeast Texas. And that is if the track and the intensity and the size forecasts are all perfect. What if it speeds up or the wind field expands? Well, the earliest reasonable time that the tropical storm conditions could start arriving in south central Louisiana on the coast could be breakfast time Wednesday. So I would use Tuesday to get completely ready, and you go to bed Tuesday night in your safe spot with your supplies ready to ride out the storm. Now, I want you to get out your cell phone, get out your camera. I want you to be ready to take a picture of the screen because I've got a couple of really important lists. And even if it doesn't apply to you, maybe you know somebody that could use some last-minute information about what supplies to get and what to do to get ready for the storm. So about the supplies, this applies to anybody at the coast or inland to deal with the potential of a power outage and being on your own in a damaged area with utilities out for several days. You want to have a gallon of water per person per day for up to 7 days if possible, because of the length of time that it might take for things to get back to normal and for help to come. water can be a life-saving substance to have around. Non-perishable food, not just for you, but for the babies and the pets as well. Fill prescriptions before the storm, especially if you need that prescription for life-sustaining reasons. I mean, some of us have some really important prescriptions. The pharmacies might be closed after the storm with a power outage or damage. Get cash from the ATM because your credit cards, your contactless payment technologies probably won't work in a power outage. Cash will be king. Get a first aid kit, battery-powered radios, battery-powered lights. Don't use the candles. Too easy to leave them unattended and cause a fire. And I recommend solar or battery-powered USB chargers. Now, what if you're in the storm surge watch? You might be told by local officials to evacuate, and you want to plan ahead of evacuation as much in advance as possible because it's really hard to do at the last minute, but this could be a very high-end storm surge event. A lot of you could be told to evacuate if you haven't been told to already. And there are a lot of reasons why it's important to plan ahead of time, because you want to avoid having to make a last-minute decision where you go, well, is the storm surge really going to be that bad? What do I do with my pets? How much is it going to cost me? What do I do about shelters and social distancing? Well, with a little bit of planning tonight and tomorrow, you can plan to deal with all of these factors. Now, know your zone. If you're in an evacuation zone, know what color, know what letter in case it's called, and decide on a destination now. Ideally, a friend who would be willing to take your pet, who doesn't live all that far away to limit your cost, and as an alternative to staying in a shelter so you can maintain some social distancing. And if you don't live in an evacuation zone, why not be a host for somebody who does need to evacuate? You can all work together on this. Speaking of working together, we've got some partners that are helping us get the word out. If you can't watch us on TV or you have to evacuate, you can also get the latest track and up-to-the-minute forecast from the Weather Channel now on SiriusXM Channel 721. We'll be live streaming through noon Eastern Time Thursday, keeping you safe.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be signs that your digestive system isn't working at its best?
Taking Metamucil every day can help.
Metamucil supports your daily digestive health using a special plant-based fiber called psyllium.
Psyllium works by forming a gel in your digestive system to trap and remove the waste that weighs you down. Metamucil's gelling action also helps to lower cholesterol and slows sugar absorption to promote healthy blood sugar levels.
So start feeling lighter and more energetic by taking Metamucil every day.
DiGiorno has 7 delicious crusts, and your family food critics will rave. Rising Crust is fresh baked deliciousness. Stuffed Crust is literally mouth-watering. There's a 5-star pizza for everyone in your family to love. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
Frank's Red Hot. I put that on everything. Like pizza, your coworker's lunch, whatever this is. Astronaut food.
And astronauts?
Everything. Yum. It's the perfect blend of flavor and heat. I put that on everything.
When it's especially important to keep skin clean, keep reaching for Cetaphil. Recommended by dermatologists. Awarded by Allure. And most of all, loved by skin. Cetaphil, the cleanser sensitive skin loves.
How do you make a Pinot Noir taste like no other? Start with grapes from 3 California regions. Push flavor in new directions. And put a bear on the label. Made like no other for a taste like no other. Maomi. Flavor forward.
Water?
Water tastes like water, so we fixed it. Mio.
It's totally normal to have constipation with belly pain, straining, and bloating again and again.
No way.
More exercise, more water, and more fiber is the only way to manage it.
Is it?
Maybe you think it's occasional constipation.
Maybe it's not.
It could be a chronic medical condition called IBS-C, and time to say yes to Linzess. Linzess works differently than laxatives. It helps relieve belly pain and lets you have more frequent and complete bowel movements. Do not give Linzess to children less than 6, and it should not be given to children 6 to less than 18. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Change your thinking to IBS-C. If your constipation and belly pain keeps coming back, tell your doctor and say yes to Linzess.
This is my body of proof.
Proof I can fight moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis.
Proof I can fight psoriatic arthritis. With Humira.
Proof of less joint pain.
And clearer skin in PSA.
Humira targets and blocks the source of inflammation that contributes to joint pain and irreversible damage.
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections. Serious and sometimes fatal infections, including tuberculosis and cancers, including lymphoma, have happened, as have blood, liver, and nervous system problems, serious allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure. Tell your doctor if you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, are prone to infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Humira is proven to help stop further joint damage.
Want more proof? Ask your rheumatologist about Humira citrate-free.
If you can't afford your medicine, AbbVie may be able to help.
This was the scene in Panama City Beach today as the outer bands, far outer bands from Marco, a tilted over, kind of disorganized, lopsided storm came towards Louisiana. So here in Panama City Beach, you had some of the wave action. You certainly had the rain, 3 to 4 footers out there, a surf zone that was all torn up, and rip current threats, which will still be with us all the way through the next couple of days. And then Laura arrives, and so you'll probably have another rip current threat from that. The ocean's not going to be a safe spot, guys. The Gulf is not going to be a quiet, beachfront vacation type scenario for the next few days with 2 storms moving through. Also want to show you this, a little combination of high tide and heavy rainfall left a lot of water on some of the roads. You see these cars trudging on through, and I guess they all made it, which is the good news, but you never know how deep that water is. So please find a safer way to get to where you are going. Our live around-the-clock coverage continues right now on the Weather Channel. The center of Marco came ashore earlier tonight. Now we're really watching Laura. So depression Marco, tropical storm Laura expected to strengthen into a hurricane before making landfall sometime within the next 48 hours. And the storm already brought gusty winds and some downpours to parts of South Florida tonight. The Keys had some tree damage, isolated, but tree damage nonetheless, a couple hundred miles away from the center. So it shows you the strength, the power of a growing tropical storm system. Do want to show you what Marco is still doing. This is what happened earlier today. Look, that's the center making landfall. All the action was out here and continues to be so, right? There's no action near that center. And yet a disorganized tropical storm was last hour still giving 2.5 feet of storm surge. I think that's finally come down. So that is some improving news there. And we go into the rest of the southeast, scattered showers and storms. Some of that tropical moisture is from Marco because that's the direction that those winds were taking it. Basically, 1 or 2 counties still underneath a tornado watch. That's about to be discontinued as of midnight Central Time. But with an area of spin still moving through Louisiana tomorrow, there could still be some extra storms there. That's Marco, small potatoes compared to Tropical Storm Laura, which could be a hurricane at just about any point as it heads towards the Gulf Coast, expected to make landfall later this week, sometime somewhere between Texas and Louisiana. I want to bring in our hurricane expert, Dr. Nab, because Dr. Nab, there's not a lot that should slow down the development of Laura.
No, and I hope it is for the sake of the folks in Galveston that it is east of them, because we can't guarantee that just yet. Looks like it will be west of New Orleans, but there's still a lot of variability that could happen in the path of the center, and we can't guarantee it's going to behave itself and go right down the middle of that cone or even stay within the cone. And the big question also is how strong will it get? Now that it's departing Cuba, it's not going to take long for it to get from 65 to 75 miles an hour overnight and become a hurricane early on Tuesday, and then up from there, likely to be very near the Category 2-3 threshold at landfall. And we need to be planning for a major hurricane coming ashore in the next couple of days. And then as Wednesday morning starts, the conditions will already be starting to go downhill before landfall late on Wednesday. And it could, by this time tomorrow, be stronger than that 85 miles an hour. That's a Cat 1. It could be a Cat 2 by then. We just don't know exactly how rapidly it will intensify. And if the forecast behaves itself, the timing will be early morning Wednesday, the conditions arriving in southeast Louisiana, and then tropical storm conditions later in the day in the rest of Louisiana. If it speeds up or the wind field expands, it could be even sooner than that. So I would use Tuesday as my prep day and get to your safe place, evacuated all your supplies when you go to bed Tuesday night. And whatever happens Wednesday, you're ready for it. Hurricane watch, that means hurricane conditions possible somewhere in this area. And there could be adjustments to this, left or right. Some or all of this could go to a hurricane warning on Tuesday. Tropical storm watch goes even farther inland. So this is not just going to be a coastal wind event. Houston, keep your eyes on this because that could change to hurricane watch or warning at some point if things shift to the left. Things could change for New Orleans, at least for tropical storm conditions, if things move off to the right. But we know that the biggest threat to life near the coast is going to be storm surge, and it's not just going to be at the beachfront. It's going to be miles inland, potentially, that we could have life-threatening storm surge. That's why the storm surge watch is not just at the Gulf front. 7 to 11 feet somewhere in this red zone of saltwater flooding above normally dry ground. And again, not just at the Gulf front, and these numbers could go up for some of this area once we get a better handle on where the center is going to go. And then inland it goes with potentially life-threatening rain-induced flooding in places like inland Louisiana and up into Arkansas and beyond. Now, we have a team of meteorologists spread out across the Gulf Coast to bring you the latest as Hurricane Laura gets closer. Live team coverage continues around the clock right here on the Weather Channel.
A lung cancer diagnosis can leave you holding your breath. But Bristol-Myers Squibb is working to change things by researching new kinds of medicines that could help you live longer, including options that are chemo-free, because we're committed to bringing new hope into lung cancer care. Learn about our lung cancer research at lungcancerresearch.com.
You did this and this for less with store-wide Labor Day savings and free delivery. The Home Depot is making do it even more affordable. So the only question now is, what could you do next? The Home Depot, how doers get more done.
It's about the humans. These humans, those humans, Groovin and Golden. It's about getting more than health insurance and a partner who listens and acts. Humana calls it human care. It's talking to a doctor from your couch or helping you find a cheaper prescription before you ask. It's helping you fix the rugs so you don't fall and keeping you social, online or off. It's getting to know you so you can be your healthiest. That's our superpower. That's human care from Humana.
We're gonna make it. Who say we can? Give it all we got and prove that we can. Together we rise with positive minds. Nothing but good vibes. This is what it's like to be. Call your friends and let them know. Appreciate the love and show. Together you're unstoppable. What are you waiting for? Together.
Lovesac Sactionals, the world's most adaptable couch. Design yours online or at a Lovesac showroom near you.
As your uncle, I want you to know that on the road to life, there will be rough spots, and they will chew up your tires. I recently took a road trip to Greensville to attend a chili cook-off. Rough roads all the way down. I drove there on these Cooper Discoverer and Duramax tires. You know, they're made with the durability of off-road tires, but for on-road driving. Without them, we might never know the winning bean-to-meat ratio of a good chili. And those are the things in life, my friend, worth driving towards. So go with the Coopers. Cooper! I'm hungry now.
Water?
Water tastes like water, so we fixed it. Mio.
That's a buffalo flatbread bullseye for my mouth to aim at. Oh, hiding, huh? The new grilled buffalo chicken papadilla. Tangy buffalo sauce, grilled chicken, and melty cheese for just $6. Papa John's.
All right, I brought in Ensure Max Protein to give you the protein you need with less of the sugar you don't. I'll take that.
30 grams of protein and 1 gram of sugar. Ensure Max Protein with nutrients to support immune health.
It's a beautiful night here in Houston. It's hot. It's summertime coming after a beautiful day. Tomorrow,
similar. Might be a few showers, but what's not going to be similar tomorrow, Tuesday, is going to be the fact that we're going to know a lot more. We're going to know if we can continue to make plans for the weekend, or here in Houston, if we have to get ready for a major storm coming into the city. I mean, it's possible it'll be business as usual this weekend. It's also possible here in Houston that the power could still be out from a storm that could be a strong storm with major impacts, flash flooding, very strong winds that will potentially impact Houston Wednesday going into Thursday. But at this point, it's this or this. We just don't know yet, because Houston is on the edge, like a lot of cities that are on the edge of the cone and the edge of our seats, trying to figure out what Laura ultimately will be and where it ultimately will go. But what we do feel pretty good about is the fact that it is heading to the Gulf Coast. Texas and Louisiana does look like the starting point for this storm to move on shore. But it's not going to be the end. It's going to stay pretty strong going up either into Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and then eventually, what I think is amazing, a strong rain producer and wind producer going all the way over to the mid-Atlantic.
And before we get to the mid-Atlantic, we got to talk about what's happening right now. And there are some pretty intense trends that we are following. For a storm that's been interacting with land and coming across Cuba, you wouldn't really know it by looking at the satellite imagery. The center now exiting that northwest coastline. Big cloud development down on the south side of Cuba. Now some cold cloud tops closer to that center. 65-mile-per-hour winds, and really the forecast continues to intensify that. Here's a look at the current winds. Again, the center somewhere over here. Mostly east loaded at this point. That will all wrap around now that the land is getting out of the way. Key West is still gusting to 35 miles per hour. When you look at all of the different major global models that we look at, mostly the USGFS and the European model and this version, and all the different versions of those two main global models, you can put those together to give us a kind of a heat map as to where this is going to go. Where there's the most options, you get the brighter color here, the high probabilities. So those models are kind of focusing in on the Texas-Louisiana coastline for the best chance. But green on this map does not mean no chance. It's just lower. We've seen storms take that kind of outlier route before. So don't put your guard down into eastern Louisiana. Don't put your guard down even west of Houston and southwest down the coastline, even as the best estimate is somewhere, Galveston and Houston area, and east from there. Gosh, we still got to pay attention to the coastline no matter what. And rightfully so, with a forecast of 110 miles per hour, that also has wiggle room. We've seen storms overachieve, so prepare for a major hurricane coming towards the coastline. Hurricane watches have been issued surrounding that, tropical storm watches. That includes Grand Isle all the way over to Houston. These will probably need to be expanded or at least shifted as the storm approaches, and we get a better sense as to exactly where that core is going to go. Plus, that core of wind moves the water. Storm surge potential is huge. Look at the potential here. Again, this could get narrowed down. This could be fine-tuned, but a wide swath of 7 to 11 feet. Some areas 4 to 6, anything over 3 feet is a life-threatening amount of water. And we can go kind of community by community here. Let's assume that the forecast is right. And, it's coming in with the core of that wind towards, the Texas-Louisiana border area. This is Lake Pontchartrain, other side of the state, and the north side of the lake could have some significant storm surge flooding all the way to, say, I-55. Or you could be closer to that core approaching, where this red color, look how expansive the reds are here. That's 9 feet or more of storm surge flooding. Remember, the Gulf is down here. Then you got the whole river system going up towards Lake Charles. Now Lake Charles is surrounded in the red. That's a change. 9 feet or more all the way up the river system. This could be a huge, huge component to this storm. And one last thing to talk about here, it's not just a bathtub with the water's rising. There's wave action, the battering force on top of that. And if you get a major hurricane approaching, somewhere in there, there's going to be a lot of that very strong wave action as well. It's not out of the question to see rapid intensification over the Gulf. We've seen it before, and we want to take a look at some of the storms that have, gone this way before. Let's bring back hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb to look at that.
Yeah, Mark, when we think of some of the recent major hurricanes or Cat 1 and 2 hurricanes to affect the northwestern Gulf, the Texas-Louisiana area, area, a lot of notorious names come to mind. Rita, 2005, Ike, 2008, Isaac in 2012, and Barry just last year. Now, look at those top two, Rita and Ike. They both came ashore in the southeast Texas, southwest Louisiana area, right near that Cat 2, Cat 3 threshold. Rita was a Cat 5 over the central Gulf, but it wasn't that strong when it made landfall. And Ike had been a major hurricane farther east, but it came ashore as a strong Cat 2. And if you remember what Rita and Ike were capable of, and you might think, well, Laura's not going to be that bad. Well, not so fast. I mean, Laura is going to come ashore at a similar intensity if the current forecast is correct. Now, one thing I want to remind everybody of is that don't assume that the track and intensity forecast, as you see it right here, is exactly how this is going to play out. And don't presume that Laura is going to be exactly like Rita in your town or exactly like Ike in your town. Laura's going to end up writing its own story, and they always throw us a curveball, and it's got 2 days to do that. So we got to keep our eye on this ball, but we can learn some things from these past storms. Now, in the case of Rita, it was already stronger by now, and it got a lot stronger over the Gulf than we think, we hope, Laura's going to get. But in any event, if you remember what Rita did, that's what Laura's capable of doing at that Category 3 threshold. But Rita's track forecast changed tremendously in the time before landfall. It wasn't a forecast that was right down the middle of the cone. Okay, Ike, same way. The forecast changed quite a bit. And even though it was Cat 1 when it left Cuba, it still intensified to Cat 3. So we've got a team of meteorologists spread out across the Gulf to bring you the latest as Laura gets closer. Live team coverage around the clock here on the Weather Channel.
Oh, hello. Did you know that Coffee Mate is triple churn and 2 times richer than milk for one perfect cup of coffee? How do I know so much about Coffee Mate? I've had a cup or 200. Coffee Mate. Coffee's perfect mate.
All right, I brought in Ensure Max Protein to give you the protein you need with less of the sugar you don't. I'll take that.
30 grams of protein and 1 gram of sugar. Ensure Max Protein with nutrients to support immune health.
Ta-da! Did you know Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need?
Given my unique lifestyle, that'd be perfect. Let me grab a pen and some paper. Know what? I'm gonna switch now. Just need my desk, my chair, and my phone. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Is there a natural litter that actually works?
At Tidy Cats, litterventions come naturally. Naturally strong unscented with activated charcoal or new scented clean lemongrass with plant extracts. 100% natural, 100% powerful. There's a Tidy Cats for that.
Through our love promise, Subaru and our retailers are proud to be replanting 500,000 trees in areas devastated by wildfires. Subaru, more than a car company.
Introducing new Life Cuisine for your lifestyle. High protein, meatless, gluten-free, or low-carb lifestyle. Power up your day with new Life Cuisine. Delicious your way.
Spectrum Mobile is now the fastest growing mobile provider in the nation, growing faster than Verizon and AT&T, and even growing faster than T-Mobile. It's easy to see why. Spectrum delivers the fastest overall speeds and is the most reliable mobile service coast to coast. There are no contracts, added taxes, or fees. Switch and you could save up to 40% and see why Spectrum Mobile is the fastest growing mobile provider. Learn more at spectrummobile.com.
Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came.
Applebee's. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available.
Unbelievable, this is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
An all-new season of Weather Gone Viral, Sunday night on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 83 degrees under fair skies. Tonight, clear to partly cloudy, low 78. Winds west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tuesday, thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. A few storms may be severe. High 93. Chance of rain 50%. Tuesday night, a mostly clear sky. Low 70. Winds northwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Although we're about 200 miles due north of the center of Tropical Storm Laura, the winds are frisky tonight here in the Keys and here in Key West, running at about 25 to 30 miles an hour and gusting over 40. Look at the palm trees getting rustled by the wind, but that's nothing. Let me take you back to this afternoon, about 15 after 3 here in Key West, and the squall came rolling, and we saw it on radar, and boy, it really came through with a lot of ferocity. The wind gusted at the nearby National Weather Service office to 69 miles an hour. In fact, they lost part of their beloved umbrella tree. Didn't get a lot of rain, 0.08 of an inch at the nearby Key West airport, and it lasted about 15 or 20 minutes. But since then, we've had this kind of wind. Now, overnight, we still have the coastal flood watch. Water is going to be running a little higher, about 1 foot to 1.5 feet. Next high tide here is about 3:15 in the morning. And tomorrow, as Laura pulls away, well away from the Keys, the winds are still going to be gusting up over 30 miles an hour. So you're going to have to wait till Wednesday to get these kayaks back in the Gulf of Mexico. So once again, here in the Keys, they missed Isaias, just a basic brush by here in the middle and lower Keys from Laura. Well, we've got a long way to go, and we've got a long way to go with Laura, as it's expected to landfall as a hurricane in just a couple of days.
Well, the hurricane hunters are out in force, getting new data on Tropical Storm Laura. This is video from earlier on Monday from the center of the storm. From the NOAA P3 Orion, the one known as Miss Piggy, the other one, of course, is Kermit. That's not the only aircraft flying into the storm. All 3 types of Hurricane Hunter planes, from the P3 you see here, to the C-130s from the Air Force, and NOAA's Gulfstream jet, which is, by the way, named Gonzo. They're all flying missions into and around Laura. We are so thankful to have these resources, the brave men and women who fly these aircraft. Rest of the world doesn't have this kind of luxury that we have in the Atlantic and Eastern Pacific part of the world. And it's one of the reasons why we know how strong Laura is tonight, because of the aircraft that have been flying in there over the last several hours. And they're going to be continuously monitoring it as it goes across the Gulf of Mexico. Now, we got a couple of reasons for having these aircraft. Again, 2 different types of aircraft. Now, one big concern is that we still don't have super high confidence on the track forecast, with the European model ensembles having a pretty wide area of potential landfall locations. Now, what do we do about that? Now, one of the tools in the box is that white aircraft there that's doing that lawnmower pattern over the Gulf of Mexico, and it spent some time over the Western Atlantic. It's flying around the tropical storm. That's the NOAA G4 jet, the plane they call Gonzo. It's a high-altitude, high-speed jet, the G4, that drops dropsons in the environment of the hurricane and the tropical storm, and that data gets into the models to help improve the track forecast. Now, the mission that has been flying all afternoon and evening on Monday night gets into the overnight runs, and for the Tuesday morning 5 a.m. Eastern Time advisory, the models that benefit from that data will be used in the forecast the Hurricane Center puts out. So hopefully the models will be in better agreement and the track forecast will be of higher confidence. Now, the other two planes that have been flying inside of Laura and navigating around inside the storm and the landmass of Cuba, that's the NOAA P3 and the C-130 from the Air Force, who, by the way, had to deploy out of Charleston, South Carolina, rather than in Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi, because of Marco and the approach of Laura. Now, what have they been finding? In the last couple of passes from the Air Force plane, didn't get any hurricane force winds, but they haven't really gotten into what is the core of the storm. It hasn't really gotten its act together just yet, but that's why they have to continuously monitor it. And the NOAA P3 went home to Lakeland, the same base where the G4 jet is. They went home a little while ago. But all of this is to get the forecast off to a better start and monitor the current intensity of the storm with those turboprops that go into the storm, and then to improve the track and intensity forecast with the data from the G4 jet, Mark. So we've launched the Armada. We got the most advanced computer models, and we still don't know for sure exactly where it'll come ashore and how strong.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that uncertainty, right? You are looking at the forecasts are 110 miles per hour near landfall, but there's all kinds of modeling that goes into forecasting the intensity, and they're giving us a range of potentials. What are you looking at with that?
Oh my gosh, they're all over the place, and there's all different kinds of models that we can use for intensity. Now here's Cat 5, and here's the borderline of Cat 1. Now you do have the H-Wharf model that's right in here, solidly above the Cat 3 threshold. Then you have another dynamical model which is just barely getting to hurricane. So the dynamical models that are dedicated to modeling hurricanes, even they don't agree. And the statistical models are somewhere kind of in between in here, as solidly as a hurricane, but how strong? There's a lot of uncertainty in intensity forecasting, but I think it's a pretty good bet that this is going to be on an intensification trend most, if not all the time, up to landfall in 2 days.
And as a family who's trying to get ready, or an emergency manager who's trying to get a whole community ready, you have to at least give a nod to those top end.
Sure you do.
Storm, potentials.
Yeah, they always account for something at least a category stronger than the Hurricane Center's official forecast. The storm surge products and briefings account for that. But if things really get out of hand tomorrow, then the emergency managers have to adjust quickly.
So pay attention to your local officials and pay attention to the Weather Channel. Our live coverage continuing right after this with all the latest information and any changes.